thanks for coming. Tonight is a budget workshop for this new town hall. It is an official meeting, but we do not anticipate taking official action tonight. Anything that we approve up here, we'll take action on at our general board meeting in a couple of weeks. My name is Kyle Barnhart. I'm the town supervisor here. I'm flanked by 3 of our 4 board members and our town clerk. And we're really just here to discuss with you the intentions for this project, sort of a broad overview of building a new town hall in Lodi. The primary goal here tonight is to settle on an amount that we intend to spend for this project, and we're going to go over some of the details of why we need to spend and why we don't. So with that, I guess I'll start with just a touch of history. This project has been in the works for, I think, since 2008 or 2009. It's undergone many changes. Since I took office in the beginning of 2020, we sort of shifted gears and internalized the approach a little bit. We gathered a building committee led by Art Police, who headed the project at the library. Carol Titus as the representative of the food pantry, which we'll get into why the pantry is so integral into our plans. Myself and Mr. Seth Thomas at the end, a board member. Mr. Batman has served as an alternate on the building committee for when other board members aren't able to attend. And Justice Van Cleef is also on that committee since security for a new town hall is paramount as well. That committee met, I think, 22 or 23 times in 2020, about an hour or 2 each time. We met here and on Zoom. We developed a significant amount of documents, preliminary documents that we intend to turn over to an architect to develop a design plan. We wanted to identify exactly what we needed to build, and so that's what the building committee built as though they had done. And now where we are is we have hired the architect to make the design plans, and we are a few weeks out from, I'd say 3 weeks out from getting our first set of very preliminary documents and budget estimations from that architect based on our needs. So that's sort of the history of why we're here. A little overview of the project, of our needs, and what I'll say before anything is there's a ton of detail to all of this. And if anybody wants additional detail or documentation, please email me. I have cards on me. I'll give you my email address, and I will send you every last piece of detail. But if we do all of that tonight, we might be here in the early hours of the night. So in terms of needs, we are in an existing town hall right now that is in very bad condition. It's been imperative to get out of that building for quite a few years now. It is all the more important to do it even more so now. So we have a building here. You see that we are in a meeting hall that feels a little bit smaller to me than our other meeting hall, but maybe we have some extra room here we can work on. And what we have to do is we have to build offices, basically, for town business. And that involves the town supervisor, which includes the bookkeeping. It involves the town clerk, which involves all of the interactions with the public. And then it involves the town justice and the town clerk, or excuse me, the court clerk. And in Lodi, we host 2 different courts. We host Ovid and Lodi, so we need a little bit more space to accommodate both of those courts. So the initial idea is to build an addition on the rear of the building that would incorporate 4 offices, approximately the same size as what we have now. However, we lose the second and third story of the existing town hall for the document storage that we've been using for 100 years or whatever. So we do have to expand the office space a little bit or incorporate dedicated office space into the new project, which we don't currently have on the floor plan of the existing town hall. In addition to that, when we purchased the building, the town just closed on the building within the past 2 weeks. We got a very, very good price on the building. This building cost the town $67,000. That's because it was sold to us by the Presbyterian and their dedication to community service, to making sure that the building had good intent going forward, was an incentive to them to give us a below market price. So the stipulation to the sale is that we, the town, would allow for the continued operation of the food pantry, which in my opinion has been one of the most critical operations in the town, especially during COVID. They fed dozens of families, hundreds of people, and I can't say enough good things about them. In my opinion, if you were to build this building, the exact floor plan, as a municipality, we are subject to prevailing wage laws. We have to pay higher union rates than just general contractors or private folks. So at the current building price, which we are assuming to be about $259 per square feet, this 2,048 square foot building would cost approximately $500,000 to $530,000 to build. It's unfortunate because of both prevailing wage and building costs, but this is the climate and this is where we are. To say it loosely, we essentially need to double our footprint. We have a floor plan that we're working with right now at just over 2,100 square feet. That does sacrifice some of our needs. I have some concerns about document storage going forward, and the last thing I would want to do is build a building that was inadequate for our needs. So we're looking at between 2,100 and 2,200 square feet, which is at 259, I think it's upwards between 560 and 600,000 for the building alone. And then there are other costs such as site work and septic and well and a number of other things. We also need to renovate parts of this building. It was our intention to not do so. However, some things need to be brought up to code, ADA. We're going to renovate the break room to add an ADA bathroom. So there are a bit of renovations that need to happen inside, but we are trying to keep that to a minimum to save on costs. The only other piece outside the offices is the continued operation of the food pantry. Currently, the food pantry operates out of, I think it's a 12 by 12. What's the size? Do you know the size of that shed?
20 by 12.
20 by 12. And with COVID and everything else, they are sort of packed in too tightly and need a little bit more room. So part of that consideration is to build a small storage area for the pantry to continue operating as well. So 4 offices, pantry storage, and then whatever hallways or whatever we need to connect them, whatever the architects say we have to do that. So that's sort of a broad overview of history of where we are today. A very, very rough and loose costs from an amateur non-architect, but can have you more detailed conclusions here when the architects deliver us our first set of documents. I'm not really sure where to go from here. This is the first sort of budget workshop or any sort of non-regular meeting that we've held here. I expect that this will be a good public interaction. I encourage you to stay respectful. We all have opinions here, and this is a very complicated issue. So give each other time to speak, and ultimately we'll come to a resolution. So with that, I guess I'll ask, do any board members or do any members of the public want to ask questions or get us started?
Yeah, I'll get started. Just want to say thank you to the Presbyterian Church team, as well as the food pantry team that worked on this project. I do personally feel that this is a significant advantage for our community. And I think without their support and their diligence, this wouldn't have happened. So I think our community owes those associates a debt of gratitude. With that being said, and having been stuck in a building process myself and experiencing the cost of materials, which are painfully high and increasing in this environment, coupled with the fact that roughly 18 to 20% of our constituents did not pay their taxes this year, which is significant. 240,000, 230,000 was left off the table, meaning the county and the town didn't receive the money as intended. I guess I would urge that we, in setting a budget, maybe consider a multi-phase approach. That we maybe start with phase 1, which uses budgeted amounts, money that we've been saving. Lee Davidson did a good job working with the Dormitory Authority to get a grant. I think that's over $100K if I'm not mistaken. So we take those funds, we pool them, and that's just phase 1. So phase 1 basically is you budget to renovate this building to make it functional for our uses. And then we look at phase 2. My recommendation to the board and to the community at this time is that we do not proceed with a phase two, which would be a addition that we would have to cover, as mentioned, a prevailing wage. The figure that was used at $259 per square foot is probably history at this point. It doesn't mean that we won't see it, or even better, or lower, which is what we're looking for in the future. But right now, I can tell you from experience, material costs for most things that you buy for building have almost doubled. Some things like wood and basic staples have more than doubled. So that reduces our ability to maximize our spend as a community. And I feel like, while we're here, we've got the momentum. I think the phase two should be developed. But my recommendation, again, to the community, to the board, is that you limit your spend to what we can afford today. And we move on that plan while we develop the phase two. We have a number of opportunities through working with our FEMA from our disaster. Once we get through all of that disaster recovery, we've been playing our cards very, very well with the guidance of the consultants. We likely will have some resources at the end of that we can allocate towards the community. I just think that's the prudent thing to do. You hear about the 55 cents per gallon tax hike. For all of us, we travel. I work from home, and somehow I get 16,000 miles on my vehicle every year. So, those are the type of things that don't necessarily impact someone that lives in the city, like New York or what have you, but it does impact us. And with the budgetary cuts, holistically thinking end to end for our community, I think the budget cuts coming from the state and the state not able to fund, I think our schools will feel it. And maybe not this year, but within the next 2 years. And the schools feeling it, I think that's where we make a decision. Do we focus on our town, or do we focus on our kids? And I think we're pretty much all aligned that we focus on our kids first. So again, thinking end to end, I just feel like it'd be a tough pill to swallow for prevailing wage and the material costs that exist today. And I think we should fade it out, because I don't think the rate of material costs today are sustainable.
Thank you. Mr. Badger, Mr. Thomas, would you like some opening statements?
Sure. I've been thinking along the same lines as Luke has on the phase implementation, because of the cost of materials. I'm pretty familiar with construction and how expensive things have gotten. COVID is a huge reason for that, but natural disasters are also a big reason why they're going up. And I would love for things to work out and prices to go down in the future, but there's no way of knowing that. But the one thing that we do know is that our building is in pretty rough shape, and if the roof falls in, if something catastrophic happens, we're really stuck. We have this building, which I think, emergency, we could have our meetings, but all of our documents, all of our office stuff, where does that go? And that's a really big consideration that a lot of people don't think about. And then, I guess I'm stuck between thinking let's do it in 2 phases, but if something does happen, like another natural disaster that destroys the building, or like the ice storm in Texas, that one storm alone increases the prices of plywood because the glue factory is being shut down. I don't think that those type of disasters are going to stop. I think that that's going to happen. The wildfires in the West is going to be always something. Hopefully the prices do go down, but I don't know how much we can really hope that they're going to really drop. the FEMA money that we have coming in, puts us in a spot where we have a buffer, one that we never have had in the past, because there's lots of money that is that's there that we can use towards towards the highway, and also have stuff left over for the projects that Rick's able to do less expensively than the budget for. There's extra in that, and then some of the projects that are not gonna maybe not finish. So I just think that as a town, Lodi's actually in a pretty good position. I think what Luke's saying, like statewide, yeah, a lot of towns are hurting, but our town is actually doing okay. And I just, like, we're all making good, it's a really good point to say, like, hey, let's not go too far, but we've been saying that for a really long time, and I think that we got this building. This is a great start. I think there's momentum to keep going with it, and I'm just kind of skeptical that costs are going to come down in the future. I don't know that I would feel comfortable basing our decisions on hoping that costs go down in the future. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thanks, Mr. Beckman, would you like to say anything?
Yes. To begin with, I think we should just assume that prices of materials are not going to go down, and follow with that assumption. If they do go down, great, but you can't count on that. And I can't remember the last time when was the last time building materials actually decreased?
It decreases every year. They go up and then they come down. So it's like anything else.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the overall trend.
Yeah, but you're looking at OSB right now, $47 a sheet, $48 a sheet. Last year it was $12 a sheet. You're looking at 4 times the amount. That's crazy. So is that going to come down? Yeah, it's going to come down. I mean, we just went through this pandemic thing. We've never been through anything like this in the history of the world. Did it change stuff? Yeah. Are we going to see prices sustain 4 times above their normal? No.
Folks, if I could, this is an official meeting. If you could, when we speak, just identify yourself so the clerk can take minutes, please.
It's Mr. Mott.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Mott.
Go.
Go ahead.
Yeah. There's some items like that that are just, I think it's a fluke, based on where they're being made and what goes into making them in terms of energy requirements and that sort of thing, like OSB, a lot different than some other materials. But the point is that overall, even if materials do come down, they're never going to come down where they were last year. I just don't believe it. That it's going to cost more. So we have to, make that kind of assumption. But I think even given that assumption, that we do have funding mechanisms to make this work. I don't think we need to separate it out into phases. I think we can. We have to be very careful. But just in this, to get what we need, our basic requirements, to get office space for the town clerk, the court clerk, supervisor, and storage of documents, and bathrooms, and mechanicals. This building just won't do it. You can't fit all of that in here, in this space. So I don't know where, if we just go with this building, I don't know exactly how that would even work. I mean, I don't know how we would get the basic requirements just based on this building. This building is, like, it probably would meet maybe 40% of what we needed. And I think with, the background here too is that Lodi, town of Lodi fiscally is in really good shape right now. We have no debt, and we've managed in the past, we've spent several years paying $47,000 a year on the bond that built the town barn after that term. And we managed to do that, and then even after we had that paid for, we continued to take that money out of the budget for a reserve fund so that we had it available for either highway needs or other needs, whatever came up, you know? And things were going on, working really well, so that the flood did not put us into a super emergency state because we were in such good condition fiscally. And I don't see any reason why we can't maintain a level of fiscal responsibility and still spend some money to get what we really need. Because, the other part too is that so now we're looking at, if we do a bond, we're looking at doing one that's going to cost us $35,000 a year, as opposed to $47,000 that we have been paying for those years to the town barn. Now I'm thinking, well, if we did the 47, why can't we do the 35?
Paul, could I speak to the finances a little
Sure.
bit? So there's sort of a few ways to think about this. There's the total project cost, but we have some resources available to us. We have some savings. We have a grant that Mr. Davidson got from the Dormitory Authority. And then you get into a bunch of moving pieces of where the rest of the money comes from. We keep mentioning the FEMA money. The FEMA money is a difficult topic to discuss. The FEMA money is completely meant to rebuild our bridges, our roads, and our culverts. However, there are two projects that we've identified in the town that the board has moved to have our attorneys investigate abandoning the roads. We're talking about Ames Road, which has one private property on it. It is pasture land, I believe. And the other is the Cat's Elbow Bridge. If we abandon those two properties, the town would receive straight cash reimbursements, essentially, I'll explain that in a second, of about $800 to $1 million. If we use that money, we could never revisit those projects again. So, abandonment is a real serious topic to talk about. We will make a lot of people unhappy, particularly with the Cat Elbow Bridge, which, I would love to discuss at length here, but let's not do that. I do find that money to be valuable, particularly for our highway department. What we have been told by our consultants is that the easiest spend of the FEMA money, the simplest spend, is on highway equipment. You buy the highway equipment, and the government reimburses you, and it's over. If you apply that money to a town hall, it is quite a bit more complicated. You start having to get into approvals at the state level, which we can accomplish, we can do. It's just more complicated. What I want you to start thinking about here, though, is that almost the entirety, outside of the savings that we have in the grant from the Dormitory Authority, we have to spend the money first before we're reimbursed. The mechanism for that is likely going to be what they call a bond anticipation note. The bank will identify the cost of the project and say, okay, you know, we anticipate that you'll borrow this much, and then wherever we shake out at the end will be the actual note. The hope here, as we'll get into, is that we have, in my opinion, is that we'll have a higher number to begin with for a bond anticipation note, and then we will experience savings throughout the project. We will experience savings. Mr. Latini has offered his expertise on septic systems. Mr. Sibley has offered his expertise on site and things like that. But as the project goes on, we have to identify the professional costs, the full costs, and then experience the savings. We cannot shortchange ourselves and then have to have this meeting again in 2 years and say, okay, we're $200,000 short. I think that's unacceptable. So the high end of the project we see currently, the building committee sees, and we believe the architect sees as 900,000, though we do think that we can experience some savings. You can look at it that way, but I also think what we really need to look at, what actually impacts you as taxpayers, is the amount of money that we spend on the project out of the budget. And what that's going to happen is a bond. That's what Mr. Batten was talking about with the $47,000 bond for the town barns. And so the conversation mostly, I think, that we're having is a disagreement over $25,000 annual bond or a $35,000 annual bond.
No, Pat, my recommendation is just phase one, use the monies plus the dome authority to tune this structure. To me, that's the go now and then wait for later versus spend 25 or 35. That's not.
Understand. Okay. And my recommendation is not a phased approach. It's that we accomplish the project at once with one bond and what I would consider to be fewer complications and less risk. Personally, is what I think. Staying in the existing building is a risk. So I don't see a phased approach. I don't see a phased approach as feasible because of the office space, which is our primary need. We can have a meeting space anywhere. We can meet at the firehouse. We can meet literally anywhere. The office and the storage, I think, is really the important part for town government to protect the vital register and the tax rolls and safes and things like that. So that's why I recommend the full approach, but I am more than willing to entertain practical pursuit of a phased approach if it works. If I can just finish so I think we're talking about a $25,000 bond gets us a certain amount of borrowing power. A $35,000 bond gets us about $150,000 more in borrowing power. And I'll again say, I think we need to start by saying, this is what we need, and this is how we'll shave it off and save it, not shave it. So to me, the argument between 25 and 35, though we do have some new approaches here. What I'll say about that is, normally when you bond for like water and sewer, the taxpayers experience immediate bills. You pay the bond payments. That's not how this is going to work. We've been saving money since the town barns were built, and we have allocated in our budget $25,000 every year that we've been sending to the building reserve. When we get the bond, which we anticipated being $25,000, of course changing with the rise of building materials, we were just going to convert that $25,000 allocation to the bond. So the taxpayers would not see a thing. It's already budgeted. We've been doing it already. So the question for me is, where do we scratch up another $10,000 from inside the budget? I believe I have that answer, and it's coming from the highway, which is just $10,000, and we're paying the last payment on a truck this year that has a $58,000 appropriation. That $58,000 is going to go away next year, and we're going to have to put it back into the budget. So $10,000 of that would cover the increased bond spend. The other 48 would be absorbed back into the budget. And the reason that that's possible, as my highway super starts to doubt me, is that FEMA money. We're talking about that $800,000 to $1 million in FEMA money, and we will take that, and instead of paying for highway equipment out of our budget, we will pay for it with the $800 to $1 million that the federal government will provide us from FEMA money, with the abandonment of Ames Road and Cat Elbow. So those are the big ticket resources that we're playing with. And that's why we're here today, to figure out what everybody thinks of that, if it's practical, and to see if it actually works. To speak on the phased approach, I just don't, I don't see the purpose of waiting on the offices and doing anything in here. Because again, we can meet in here as is today. The court can't, but we can. So the offices, I think, are the paramount reason for the bill. And then we're not even talking about the future of the old site, which the town will need to figure out what to do with, and will likely cost us significant resources to tear down and do something with it. So that will be another expense going down the road. In an ideal world, I would love to see the entire project lumped in together and over with, but I understand the fear over the money. I have utmost confidence that even with a $35,000 annual spend on the bond and going at $900,000 to $950,000 budget, that you won't be affected. Your services won't be affected. Your roads won't be worse off. You won't see a tax increase. I think we have it. I think the last administration did a very good job putting us in a position for this. And the last thing that I'll say is we can wait to see what building costs do, but we need to be in a position to put shovels in the ground. We need to have the plan ready to go and jump on it now, or not now, but when building costs come down. And if they don't come down, then it will cost more. So it's a tough spot. I have a little fear about inflation, because we've heard some bad numbers about inflation, so I'm wondering if building materials do come down, if they'll be negated by a 10% inflationary rise. So there's so many moving parts out there that we can't control. But what we can control is that we're in a really good position. We have the money, we have the plan, it's under $1 million. It's the exact same budget number for the old site. If we could spend $950,000 on the old site that we were going to, why can't we spend it 5 years later on the same project? It makes sense to me. That's sort of where I'm at. Mr. Davidson.
Okay, I've got 3 questions for you. First one is, the experience I've had, which was not very good, but I did have some experience with the town for 12 years. And, you can't just think about putting a building up. You've got to think about all the parts in this program. I don't know what you're talking about by taking money away from the highway department. I'm not defending anything Rick does or not does. You got 3 trucks, 3 10-wheelers. Last time, I assume they're all still running. But one of them is a 6, another one is 11, and another one is I don't know, 12 or 14, I don't know what year it is. 7. But that's the expense you're gonna have. And if you're gonna buy one of these things, the experience I had with this, you gotta plan this stuff 2 to 4 years out so you can still get one, because they're not building them every day. Because nobody's buying them like they used to. But you need to think about that. How many years can you get a bond for?
For the type of building that we're, stick-built building that doesn't have the higher levels of fire protection and whatnot, 20 years.
You go up to 20
You
years.
go up to 20.
Well, to me, that would, a 20-year bond would be something you need to think about, because a lot of us folks in this room, as I look around the room, not too many young folks in here. So you need to spread this thing out as long as you can. Let those other people. What do you mean? Oh, you're our Bobo, so. Oh, she's not. She's young. But I mean, the whole situation, you're thinking in some ways in the right way, but you're going to scare people pretty bad by going with a $900,000 bond. I think you're going to scare a lot of people that are going to fight you from tooth and nail. And I'm sorry if I'm saying that and busting your bubble or anybody else's. I've lived here a while. I know how things go sometimes. So, I mean, you've got to do a lot of good planning and stuff like that. And you can't have the most expensive thing on. You can't have a Taj Mahal. You need to have whatever you can have that will go within the situation. And I realize, I don't know, this room is probably not big enough to move the court stuff down here. The way it looks to me, I've been in here a few times, but I've never done any measurement. But the court, everything up there is something we have to live with. And with your opening statement about the farmers market stuff that goes on here, I think it's a wonderful situation. But is the town gonna pay for putting a new building up for them, or they're gonna furnish their own building? I mean, these are questions that people are gonna ask.
Yeah, so I'm happy to address those. I'll start by saying, the bond would not be for 900,000. We're talking about total project cost at 900,000. We're looking at about roughly 500 to 550,000 in bond. That's what we're looking at. We have about,
You could bond that for 20 years.
yes. I have a quote from Green National Bank. We have
900 grand wouldn't be for 20 years.
500 grand.
500 grand.
Yep, so we have about, I brought all these resources today so that we can follow along here. On the monthly report of the supervisor, we have a $239,000 building reserve. And then there's an account called HA New Buildings that has another $50,000 in it. That's about $290,000. And we spent $68,050 to buy the building and get the deeds recorded and whatnot. So we're sitting at about 210, something like that, 210. Let's just call it 200 for sake of conversation here today. Mr. Davidson got $125,000 in grants from the Dormitory Authority. So we'll call our guaranteed resources $325,000. We're talking about a $900,000 spent. So that's about $575,000. Yeah. So there's a couple of other moving pieces in here in terms of the budget of where that number goes between like 500 and 550 or whatever, but the bond would be less than $600,000. And that rate quoted by Green National Bank, which is one of the larger bonding banks in the state. I have the paper in front of me, I'm so sorry that I don't, but we got 25,000 annual, 30,000 and 35,000 annual, and I think $550,000 was our borrowing power on $35,000 annually. So that's what we're playing with the bond. So it wouldn't be the full thing. In terms of the pantry, I understand that's going to be a point of contention. There's two ways of looking at this, and I understand both ways. What's the market value of this 2 acres and this 2,000 square foot building? I mean, we all have our guesses of what market value would be. Would anybody be offended if I called it 150,000? I bought a house for 90. This is 3 times my lot size and a lot bigger. So if nobody objects to calling it 150. We got about a $90,000 retail discount, okay? And that was with the stipulation that we allowed the pantry to continue operating. The last set of documents that we received under the last administration called for a 4,000 square foot building. That's what's needed. A meeting hall, bathrooms, offices, etc. So we're talking about a 2,000 square foot building here, and we're talking about adding 2,200. Okay. You take 2,000. This is actually 2,048 square feet in here. It's a 64 by 32 building. Multiply that by 259. I think you get $530,000. So had we built this exact building, because we are subject to prevailing wage, if we had built only this building and not the addition on that blank site, it's $500,000. So to me, we got a building for $67,000 that should have cost $500,000. Now I know you see the market value of 150 to 67. You can look at it that way if you want. The pantry needs about 400 square feet of space to operate. That's small. It's pretty small. 20 by 20, is that right? Yeah. We've shaved that down to like 300 and something. Mr. Latini wanted us to take away a large community room that we had planned that was about 500 square feet, which he's right, we can't afford it. That's a $250,000 expansion. Building committee pulled it. Okay, we got away from it. Now we're down to 2,100 square feet or so. And I think we've identified at this point that it's going to cost us about $500,000 or $600,000 just to build that addition, not to mention the renovations here. So that's sort of, I guess what I want to say is if we build a 300 and something square foot addition for the pantry at 259 square feet, I think we're coming in at about 100,000 in my head. I'll do a quick calculation here.
Well, actually, say the appraised rate of this building is at 145.
Okay.
And our all in, because we covered we didn't pay quite 67. We may have paid that, but it was closer to 80,000.
Where are you getting 80 from?
Because we had to pay their closing costs, we paid the appraisal fee, etc.
That was less than $3,000 all in.
The 80,000 is from your sheet.
That was early when we thought the closing costs were going to be, but we started with the big number and we shaved the savings off.
So I'm not opposed to making it bigger and right sizing it. My proposal is the timing. And I heard the same from the councilman down there. The other thing is, I'm not opposed to moving, because I do believe strongly that that other building is a liability, and it needs to be dealt with. I also know this is a pole barn structure, which devalues the cost of the structure. The land was donated in part by the firehouse. So in like kind, there's goodness that's transcending with this property. So it's not like we bought it from an individual. Okay, so I have to keep that in mind. Secondly, with this being a pole barn, that may add some negative value in terms of long-term cost and usability, but it also adds the flexibility because none of these interior walls are structural. You have more usable square feet in this facility than you do in what we're in today. And the big concern is document storage. That does take up space, but we need to get with the times. No company keeps their file confidential records in an office in a locked room. They pay Iron Mountain or another company to stop by once a week, get it out of the safe, take it and repository it, and all you get is a PDF, you get a file. That's modern. You can't find anything when you go to look for it without taking a ton of time. And sometimes, records that I know exist, you can't find them. So you automate. Every company that I've known and been a part of in the last 30 years, they scan their stuff. We have an Iron Mountain in Rochester. Truck stops by, picks it up, away they go. Done. You get a PDF verifying it's there, it's all legal, it's all everything good to go. So there's no reason why these walls, which are non-load bearing, can't be moved around in the same square footage that we've been in for quite a few years now, including the Open Court. So we've got the added burden of having the Open Court. We get 4,000 to 6,000 to 8,000 from them a year, which helps out. It does within our community. And in doing so, you've got the space. You've got everything you need. I'm not opposing the addition. I'm opposing the timing. Sure.
I love what you said about the document storage. That's something that we have not considered here. I think we do have some, I'm so sorry, Paul. We do have some state mandates that we do have to retain some records for X amount of years.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's a wonderful.
There's federal mandates in the business that I'm in, and you have to maintain them for the life of your product. And if you don't, you're legally responsible. That's a huge problem.
Do you have any idea what the costs are associated with that sort of program?
It's pretty reasonable. It goes by the number of pickups. It goes by whether you have soft data, so you have discs or media from a tape machine or whatever. So they'll back up your IT infrastructure. They also back up the hard copy. Most of what we do is all hard copy. The volume of documents that I've seen in the 10, 12 years I've been doing this is very low. I think you would probably spend on the order of $5,000 to $6,000 a year.
The town has already started that a few weeks ago, and it's a free service in New York State. But the court has a different criteria. Some of their records have to be retained up to 25 years.
Sure.
I think
that's not a problem, because it's, like I said, in most industries, nuclear, pharmaceutical, medical, it's the life of the product. So if you have a device, that's life of the patient, 100 years. You have to retain it. So those companies, and Iron Mountain is just one company. We would probably want to get quotes. Obviously, take the one that has the best service for fee and go with it. So I'm just saying, please don't discount this. And there is a reason why this community in our township is in a good financial state today. When this present board came in, there's a reason for that. Because there was a lot of care and strategic actions that went into play. Certainly we want more for our community. We always do, right? I'd love to have a community room and augment the firehouse and the library. But I just don't see it at this time, and the audience. You want the best for your community. The people on that board, and the church, and the food pantry, they want the best for their community. That's just innate. So please take my caution or my recommendation. There's always a way, and the timing is just right now is wrong. When you go and put 18 lag screws on the table and a box of 1¼ white brads, and that's $84. $84. I'm living it. I'm living the pain. That's not just plywood. It's everything. It's pellet tape. It's Tyvek. It's absolutely out of control.
That's if you can get it.
If you can get it.
So it begs the question, you know, what are we looking at? Should we choose to delay, to wait on building costs? What is our responsibility to the town? What's our responsibility for action to be able to know when to jump, to know what's acceptable?
I think great question.
Yeah.
I think it's all about timing. And, you know, we have to move. So I do think we have to retrofit this facility, you know, as quickly as possible. I think that's a must do. So, you know, fully aligned. I do also think you should continue with the needs assessment, your user requirements for your space that the building team has come up with. I would not abandon those. And I would structure the costs. I would structure thereafter to say, okay, this is what we're going to get. This is our needs assessment. These are user requirements. This is what we want to build. And then we have a concrete plan for going and doing it. And if we have to put on a ticket in November to say, do we want to get rid of Ames Road or do we want to do this? We put it on the billet and let the people decide, and then, you know, do the swap with the community. That FEMA process is going to take a few years, everyone. It's not, and everyone thinks that, oh, you get the money. I saw some things online that said, oh, you know, some of what they were saying was right, but the reality is you have to spend it first under their pretense and under all of their code of federal regulations. Then once you've done that by the book, then you get it back. And then we can do the swap. So I agree with Kyle's plan to do, you know, send that money into the road maintenance, and then you can pull, you know, X amount out. That's a phase 2.
Yeah. So Mr. Davidson also brought up highway equipment, which, so what I'm trying to do here is develop a 5- and 10-year capital plan and a 5- and 10-year financial plan. And I've been trying to pull the pieces out from every which way. Mr. Jaycott just gave me roughly the next 10 years of highway purchases, which loosely come in between, you know, 900,000 and 1.1 million, which sounds like a big number. But this is what we've been doing for a long time. You know, we've been budgeting $58,000 a year for that. So when you think about it, you know, it starts to add up a little bit. With the FEMA money, we can essentially, not completely, but we can essentially fund those purchases for the next decade without any impact to taxpayers. It would come at the sacrifice of Ames Road and Cat Alpha and nothing else. That's a conversation that we're having and going to continue to have and try to identify those things. But the capital and the financial plans are being put into place, and this is why, so we can identify those costs. I think Luke is presenting good ideas. I'm a little frustrated by the notion to renovate the existing space, because the building committee has been meeting since last March, and this is actually the first time that's been proposed.
Yes.
So we have already hired the architect. We have already provided the architect with our requirements and our preliminary conceptual documents. Where we got into trouble with the last plan under the prior administration is we started to see changes to the architectural requests, and it ultimately drove the price up, and drove the price of the project up, drove the price of the architects up. So I agree with you. I think it's a great idea, but we're a little late. We're a little late. If we go back to the drawing board with the architects now, it will cost us more money. Maybe not as much as a new building, but it will cost us more. So,
there's also the issue that we make renovations here to accommodate those office spaces and try to squeeze that all into the structure. And then we are able to, at some point, we are able to build what it is, build something that will really meet all of our needs. And what do? We deconstruct, we tear down these renovations, because those are going to go into those will be met in the new space.
You would have to have a plan for repurposing, but again, being a pole barn structure, you can move these walls very easily.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
but, you know, it's still.
I had a structure, I owned a home, our first home was a pole barn structure. It had a lot of things you don't like about pole barns, but one of the pluses is, if you didn't feel you had enough kitchen space, you moved the wall down a truss or two. It's very easy from a labor perspective to make those adjustments. And I don't think we should take the architect off the proper process. I don't think that's what I'm advocating for at all. You know, the team has a vision, I would run with the vision, but I would have a first stop, because I don't feel we will get any value for our dollar moving. I can tell you, I'm living it. You want to see $25,000, $30,000 credit card bills? It's sick. I'm happy to send them to you.
I understand.
I don't even know how to explain.
Nobody's doubting the cost of building materials. It is the crisis we are.
It's the crisis, so I'm just saying, please don't do this in the crisis. We do need to move. Let's have a hybrid plan that uses the funds that we have to tune up this building, you know, paint job, like I said, move a couple walls, and get into it. Lou said he would do grants to get the contents moved over and set up.
So he can't. So, I mean, okay, so we'll follow this, we'll chase this rabbit for a minute. If we renovated this, I mean,
Yes.
to me, the advantage of purchasing the building for $67,000 is that you don't have to spend the construction costs. So if we renovate this and move walls, we are still talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. We are, because you have new walls, new offices, new security. I mean, Lou estimates the security alone is $30,000 to $60,000. He thinks it's reimbursable from the Office of Court Administration, but that's a member of our building committee with expertise in court security that is giving us, and he's in touch with the state. So if we turned this into what we needed, we sacrifice our actual requirements. We are already below requirements where we are. We don't have sufficient jury rooms and conference rooms, which is what those two rooms would be. We would remove the bathrooms. I don't.
Kyle, I hear you.
I don't think there's room.
I hear you. I apologize. This came to me like the last 2 weeks because it's just too much. And I don't know how to express that to you all, that this is not the time to do that type of work. It just isn't. And Mr. Batman, I respect your opinion greatly. And I do think we're on a bubble, and it has to pop because it's simply not sustainable.
And I agree with you on that. I agree, I do.
So,
why are we not having some kind of referendum vote or put it on the ballot to get the input from the community?
we did. That's what
This is a lot of money.
It was put on the ballot 4 years ago, and just over 60% of the community said we needed a new town hall. So that authorized the board at the time, and it extends to this board as well. It extends
I mean the cost that we're talking.
This is the same proposed cost as the prior project.
The cost was listed on the ballot?
No, but when you gave your board permission to pursue the town hall project, the town identified the available spend that was available to them at the time, publicly through public meetings. That cost was established at around $900,000, and they engaged with engineers to pursue the design plans for that. The design plans came in well over that, and the board denied those plans. So they did the responsible thing by staying to their budget. We are with a new administration now. We have maintained that budget line, and that's where that's where the proposal has gone.
Okay. We originally got the loan for the monies for the lot down a kitty corner from the town hall.
I don't think that was a loan, it was a straight purchase, right?
straight purchase. Yes,
Pardon?
it was
It's
a
a cash
straight purchase.
purchase.
I didn't.
There was no loan, it was
No
a
loan.
cash
It
purchase
was
of
like-
that lot.
Well, yes, but we had money given.
No,
I
two
thought,
different things. We had money, when we started, probably 2012, 2013, we want to be like Ovid, right? Ovid
Right.
goes and buys things, right? I rode the stinky bus as a kid.
Yeah.
Okay? So I want to be like Ovid. I want to be able to buy something when I want it at the town of Lodi and not have to go get a 20 or 30-year bond or a 10-year bond every time we want to buy a truck.
Right.
They have their town hall meetings and wherever,
The
whoever
firehouse.
left, firehouse, whatever.
Right.
You know, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. We have our own ways, but they use our court system. So they're very smart about how they spend their money. I'd like to be like Ovid, right? So what we said, we all put together a bridge fund. We put together a new building fund. I think we had at least one or two other new equipment fund, which would give the supervisor incentive not to spend money, but to pool his money each year so he could go get a piece of equipment. So the money that was used to buy that land was from that annual savings that we had saved. And I want to say it was 11 or 14,000 that we paid for the land. The dump took the land for free, or took the old house on it that was falling down at no cost. And I know we had to pay legal fees, so we're probably in it for about 20,000, maybe a little bit more. But I'm sure Connie or the accountants could put the math together if that were so. But that was paid for cash from that building reserve fund.
What was your particular question about it, Lynn?
Pardon?
Did you have like were you going somewhere with that?
Well, yeah, my mind's out for a second here. But I have one other issue that concerns me, is you're writing off Pat's Elbow Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only bridge that goes from 414 that's the only road that goes from 414 all the way over to 89. For your shared services and everything, I think that should be put back in there. Because if you're calling for shared services from Trumansburg or whatever, and yes, it's happened before, for them to have to come all the way around instead of coming right over the hill, you might lose your house.
It's a valid concern, Lynn. I mean, abandoning a bridge is a valid concern. The way, I'm going to speak a little frankly here, which I've been trying to do less of for many reasons. That road serves very few people. It always has. I grew up in Hector. I've spent a lot of time down there. My aunt lives on Marsh Road. She's married to Harold Marsh. And she complains to me all the time. I really want that back because that's my out to Ithaca. That's the way she goes to Ithaca. She doesn't like driving the mile down the 414 and going over the big bridge. We hired some experts for this, for the FEMA stuff, okay? And they, out of all the 29 projects across the towns, more like 89 or 90 projects, they lumped them into 30 projects. They estimated that we're going to get about $3.6 million in reimbursements, and that the highway's going to use that to fix all the culverts and all the roads and everything. Of that $3.6 million, about 1.5, 1.6 is Cat Elbow Bridge. The federal government does not believe that it costs that much to replace that bridge. We hired engineers. We hired two sets of engineers. We hired Dave Herrick out of T.G. Miller in Ithaca, and we hired Sessler, the big ones up there. Sessler. We hired both of those guys with FEMA money and sent them out to give us estimations on the bridge, and it's 1.5, 1.6 million. The federal government wants us to build it for $800,000. We can't do it. We can't do it.
Well, they're also concerned that we're basically just going to close it and use the money for other purposes, so that's why they would lowball.
So we're allowed to do that, and we held off on publicly saying that, but we're at the point, on advice from our consultants, to pursue the initial abandonment. So that's what we have done, at least start the legal work so that we're in the position. So the question here would then be, do we take that money, that $800,000, and try to rebuild the bridge? Do we wait with the federal government and keep fighting and try to get 1.6 and rebuild the bridge? Or do we identify it as a resource and take that money and apply it to the community? And in this case, that's my opinion. I think that's the best course of action. Would not disagree with anybody who thought that bridge is valuable. I understand that. Mr. Masters, I think you wanted to say something?
Oh, we have a public comment from a Zoom participant.
Please.
So what I am going to do is
goes into it, and then it's Seneca Road. There are no Lodi residents on Seneca Road for, I think it's 1.5 miles or something like that. That road basically serves like 9 Hector households. And I'm a Hector boy at heart. I live here now. Thanks for electing me. It's a really hard pill to swallow. We're over here arguing about a $600,000 bond, building a $1 million+ bridge for 9 Hector families. Y'all might as well just vote me out now. You know what I mean? That seems crazy.
Can I say something
Please.
just for,
If you could identify yourself for
young
the,
local, lived here my whole life, in regards to this bridge, sure, only serves those 9 people. It is one of the only true landmarks to be able to identify when you're doing property lines and all that kind of thing. So to me, that's kind of important. It is a county line, it's the only true line. But above and beyond that, maybe it is only those families that are in Hector. The only way for them to come out is up Seneca Road. I don't know if anybody in this room has been up that road. And Highway Department, I absolutely love you guys and appreciate what you do. So please don't feel offended with what's about to come out of my mouth. There is not any way you can go up that road, whether you're going east or west on that road, and not ruin your car.
Yeah.
There are holes that are 6 to 8 inches deep, and you know what? Those people that drive on that road, there's quite a few of them that work in our community and take care of our kids. Like, so selfish of us to be like, oh, they don't pay taxes for us, but you know what? They help take care of our people too. So if we're gonna abandon the bridge, then my request or my, hey, food for thought, at least have some consideration. Somebody, all of you should take a minute, drive down that road. Tell me, would you want to come in and out of every day, 2-3 times a day?
Which road was that again?
Seneca Road
So,
and Lodi Center. Go take that, go take everybody, go check that out. Tell me if you can even go 20 miles an hour down that road safely.
thank you. I understand that. I've spent a lot of time on Seneca Road. We used to party at Cedar Pond as teenagers because the cops didn't bother coming up there because the roads were so bad. So I get it. I do. I get it. Cat's Elbow is entirely in the town of Lodi. It is not a county line or a town line. I understand Seneca Road is, but I would encourage you to read the history of Cat Elbow Bridge because we've got about 120 years of pretty hilarious disagreements between town of Lodi and town of Hector. Ben, if you want to curate.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. My name's Anissa. Okay. Sorry, it's a little hard doing this event. I really appreciate you doing it hybrid. I haven't been able to hear everything that was said, but one of my main questions is, if the project were to be phased, and Mr. Latini, you might have said this at the beginning, when would the second phase go into effect? The reason I'm asking is because I just think in practical terms, we've waited a very long time to have a new town hall, and we have no guarantees that the materials costs, like how much they will go down in the future. So I think that there's an overall benefit to completing it all at once, though I do understand, believe me when I say I understand the argument about phasing. I'm just interested in knowing when we're projecting, if it were to be phased, the entire project would be completed. Because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to lose momentum in a phased project.
yes, if I could address that. I do agree with you. That's why I would continue on with we've already paid the contract for the architect. I would continue on with that approach. I would also say that most data or intelligence suggests that our economy will return probably to normal. I say probably because no one knows. It's a projection in 2024. Some industries may take longer. So I would think based on, the disruption from COVID, disruption from natural disasters, which always, I think, is a short-term excuse. I don't think that's what we're seeing today. But there's a lot of supply chain disruptions in almost every business, whether it be automotive, recreational, like jet skis and motorcycles, med device, whatever those industries are, all of them have been affected from a supply chain perspective from COVID. And as a result, we're seeing some very interesting trends. And as a result, I tend to go with the projection of 2024. I think that's probably pretty realistic. And that would be also my best estimate at this time.
Thank you, Nisa. Thank you, Luke, for answering that. For me, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow. 2024, that's 3 years away. We've already been working 10 plus years. I guess there's a school of thought that says, why not wait a little longer? I would counter that by saying, we're on our way developing the plans, and hopefully by the time we're shovel ready, we'd see some sort of decrease. But yeah, that's tough. 2024 is a long time. That particular study that I'm referencing is a broad spectrum. It did break out building, but it's a broad spectrum, and that's where, when the general economy is and supply chains are too normal. That's not just COVID level.
Correct. That's not just 1 or 2, 3 industries. That's a broad spectrum analysis.
Mr. Ma.
So it's $950. That's the price you got right now.
We have
and I guess my question is,
we're working with a range between 900 and 950. That's
Okay.
loose. It's a very high elevation.
This all could be a moot point if they come back and say it's gonna be 1.2, right? Everything we're doing now, obviously you wouldn't proceed forward.
Yes, but we have, because of the last issue that we had a year ago, we have been very careful to make sure that we are informed every step of the way and rely on the experts. So $259 per square foot was the best. Again, we've been doing this for a year. That was the best price we had very recently.
That was a year ago?
No, that was in the past couple of months.
Okay.
And that's with advice. We met with 4 architecture firms, and we pulled teeth to get information that they didn't want to release out of them. And, we finally got some, yeah, you're about right. So, we've been making the best assumptions that we think. That's why we're looking at $900 and $950 as a total project cost, including the site. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Utter, hello.
Hi, James Utter. If you build the new courtroom, can you get more money from OVID to help with renovations? If you update the courtroom, you update the price on what we get for doing work.
That's certainly within our power. Yeah, we would walk a fine balance, in my opinion, we would walk a fine balance between increasing their rent and them pursuing their own separate court. So we would essentially lose the rent if they chose to go on their own or something.
But would we need a court that size if they want to know?
So the court, as proposed, this is the court facility. We would add security measures. The only additional things that we would build would be a similarly sized office for the town justice and the town clerk, or the town justice and the court clerk that we have right now. They would basically just plop on the back of the building. Again, that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about 4 offices. The interior here, we get a nice paint job, and then we have to mess with that break room there. It has to turn into like a ADA compliant bathroom and a break room, but that's really, in the best scenario, with the big non-phased approach, that's what we're talking about. It's not a new courtroom, it's just securing this, whether it's frosting the windows or whatever you gotta do to make it security tight, there's some of that, yeah. In the back.
Kyle Andrew, why can't this space be used for a community room as well as the court? I've been in a number of different town halls and they're set up that way. This doesn't need to be just court space, doesn't seem to me.
Agreed. So let me walk you through a little bit of our thought process when the community room concept came available. One of the primary focuses for the building committee was security. We imagined, this is early, we've abandoned the community room at this point, and we are thinking of this as a community room, so let's just, we know that. The initial idea was to sort of have this is when building costs made sense, a three-part campus, for lack of a better word, but it would be this building, a replica building, and then a 500 square foot community room. The thought was that each of the sections would be secured at different levels. This would sort of be a medium security part of the building. The town offices and the court offices would be a high security area, and the community room would be a low security area. The idea was that the community room could serve community events, whether it's your yoga or your senior nights or your Boy Scouts or whatever it may be. That's where we were going to put them. We didn't want them to have to bother with town government to be able to use the room. You know, somebody would be a point person and let them in the whole thing. Once we abandoned the concept of the community room, yes, it's very clear that this is the space that would be used. I've got some slight hesitancy in terms of like high volume of community stuff in this room, just because of the nature of the courtroom and the town hall meeting room and the logistics of our equipment and our bench and stuff like that that doesn't move. So that's why we went away from this. But yeah, of course, when we drop the community room, this should certainly serve that purpose. I don't see why not. But it is much more limited in concept than the original concept of the community room. You know, we don't have much in Lodi. We don't have a main street. We don't. There are spaces such as the firehouse and stuff, but nobody's gonna like me saying this. Where private enterprise is failing us, it's my belief that this government has not a responsibility to serve you for what you need. And if we deprive you of those services, if we don't give you spaces for things that make you happy and things that promote your well-being, then we're failing you. And oh my gosh, I'm just crap. I'm raising a young child here in this community, and there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to send her. There's nowhere for kids to play. And so one of my intents here as your town supervisor is to do everything in my power to make this a better place to raise families and to get younger folks here and stay here and not leave. I stay here. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So I feel like I'm being respectful and to your wishes of not blowing up the budget. But we can't be the stinky bus our entire lives. We have to build better. We have to do more for each other. Ben, I'm sorry, Luke, if you want to do both.
Oh, so no, just passing along public comment from Zoom. This is also from Anissa Mendezabel, and she had to leave, but she just passes along. I would just like to say that I think it is in the community's best interest to complete the project sooner rather than later, especially if we have the funds to do so. In my understanding, phasing often or usually occurs to gather the necessary resources to do the next phase. It seems we have the resources to complete this project, so we should. And again, she's left the meeting, but she asked to convey that. And while we're screening from Zoom, Mark Benjamin comments, the ballot measure did not approve a 20 or 30-year bond, nor a $950,000 construction project. It may be helpful to send the final scope of the project to voters to approve or disapprove.
Thank you, Mr. Masters. To address Mr. Benjamin's point, no, ballot initiative was not that detailed. The ballot initiative gave you the voters. I think I'm going to be a little loose here, but I think it was, we have this much in savings, can we spend it on a town hall? I think that's essentially what it is. Was there a little bit more to it?
It authorized us to build a new town hall. So it would have authorized us to raise bond, do whatever we thought we needed to do. To that point, to me, like cat's elbow and those details, I'm okay saying that we buy a new truck. Me personally, I'm okay saying that. If we're going to abandon road chips, I think that's a community decision.
Sure, absolutely.
If we're going to spend the big dollar, me personally would feel very much more comfortable if the community is their decision as well. And the only thing I keep coming back to is 20%, or almost 20% of our people in Lodi didn't pay their taxes this year.
So to that
almost
point,
100% paid in January, February, March of last year. we had almost 100%. There were shortfalls in other communities, and it's like, we did it. This year, it's almost 20%. That's something, that's to me very unnerving. And when you throw the cost of materials in with 20% of the people didn't pay, that doesn't make me want to go out, and spend $1 million or thereof of money in this environment. And the reason, again, I go back to why we're green today, why the members of this board walked into a green environment. They're not like Covert or other towns that are struggling. We have a nice base. It's because we were very careful and we made our decisions. There were some mistakes, but in general, we made very careful decisions on what we did. And this would be one of them. I'm just one person here. And, having that tenure, whether it's good or bad, I came in, and the first year I was in, it was 11% our taxes went up. For the township portion, 11%. And bringing the financial acumen and partnering with Lee Davidson, we didn't get along at first at all. And then once we realized, okay, our strengths and our perspectives, we're both for the community first. I think for me, gave me a different perspective, and it gave us the ability to put those funds and work as a team, whether we always agreed like we are now. I mean, this is democracy, right? This is why we get our $50 or $100 a month, right? It's not comfortable to be here and oppose people in public. It's just not. But I feel it's our duty. That's why we're here. We're elected. It's not for the money. It's not for $100 a month and you take home 50. It's not about that. Think of it as more of a volunteer. And when you do that, you want to leave your best behind you. You want to make sure you're making the best decision. And the equation for me, in my perspective, and having maintained, going from 11% jump in tax down to 0 or 1 or 0.8 or 0.7, whatever we had to do, so everyone in the community would be eligible for their star, because you either have to have your township or your school be under the governor's tax cap. If you don't, your community doesn't get the star. So our community received the star. 62% of our people, Noel Clausen did a study, off the prior census, 62% of our constituents are on a fixed income. So you have two modes of thought: raise the taxes, drive them out. Well, I don't think that's ethical. So for me, it's make sure that they have an environment in which they can live and survive in. And you get that balance. And for me, the balance is you don't spend $84 on 18 lag screws and a box of 1.25" brads if you don't have to. If you can wait that out and wait until those supply chain and those value streams are restored, you have a much better buying power for your community. And I don't know what else to say other than pull barn, reconfigure the walls, get Iron Mountain or equivalent set up. I'm thankful that everyone's here tonight. Our board meetings for the last 8-10 years, there's 2 or 3 people, and usually it's the spouses of the board members. So it's great that we have this engagement, but it's not normal. So we don't need 8,000 feet of space to handle our normal capacity. Things like the flood. When we had the flood, we had a lot of visitors. We had a lot of community members take interest. What did we do? We moved out of the small area. We moved into the Mike Huff and team cleared out the town hall or the fire hall, and that was more than adequate. Even with all the stored supplies, it was more than adequate. So with this building being the same space, or maybe a little bit more than our old building that we've been successfully in, including housing Ovid, I think they can do a little bit of work. I certainly hope it wouldn't cost a couple $100,000 to move some walls and put some sheetrock up. But that's where my heart and my head is at, and I don't know how to see it any other way.
Thanks, Lou. That's really good. I'd like to respond to some of his points. we could pursue the renovation option. That would be yet another design contract, which, you know, if that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do. My concern there is that we have already wasted tens of thousands of dollars on design contracts, and we would essentially throw the, maybe not necessarily throw the current one away, but if we did renovate this and it was adequate for our needs, then yeah, we would be sort of throwing that away. I hope the public does see that we are being very careful in our approach. The building committee met bi-weekly for a year, developed pretty significant plans. I've mentioned the financial and capital plans that the town is trying to build. I've mentioned highway equipment plans and how we allocate the FEMA money. So, you know, we're being pretty diligent in how we are using your resources. He's mentioned the 20% that have not paid their taxes. For the town of Lodi, we do not lose a dollar when somebody does not pay their taxes. The county reimburses. So if I don't pay my taxes to the town, the county pays the town for those reimbursed taxes. So while that might affect us at the county level, it does not affect our resources at the town level. Piggybacking on that, the town of Lodi is paying one of the highest county tax rates in the county, and that's because we have not reevaluated our property in a very long time. That's an expensive gambit in itself. I think it's Ann Morgan said it's probably around $70,000. But the fact that we haven't reevaluated all the properties in the town in so long means that we are actually paying more money to the county individually than other townships do, which is something we should correct.
Good night.
Thank you. The other part, speaking of taxes, and if we do have such a significant amount of folks that are on fixed incomes, I pushed early this year to pass a tax exemption for disabled and senior folks, and this board opted to wait. That would certainly be something that would help our fixed income folks, and would shift money around, shift the tax burden around a little bit to those of us who have it. I think that that's an excellent solution to helping those fixed income folks out, especially in navigating this project. And those are my notes. How to think of that, Frank? Hey.
Frank Miller. During the whole meeting, I agree with you that the FEMA money is a buffer if we don't spend it. And we're talking about spending it before we even get it. What you just said about the county giving us the tax money back for people who couldn't pay, I don't think that's what Luke meant. I think Luke meant 20% of the people couldn't pay, and now you want to put a bond on top of that?
No.
For them to pay?
No. I let off, Frank, I just want to say, I let off by saying there is no additional bonding. We are talking about how the money is moved around inside the budget. There is zero tax increase related to this town hall project.
Okay. Mr. Badger, you mentioned that you don't think that the public went great right away. As Luke pointed out, and Matt pointed out, and myself has found out, everything is triple. Even if it came down 1/3, that would keep us from spending $900,000 on a $700,000 building.
What?
Well,
You buy power. You have no buy power.
we're spending way more than the value.
It'd be impossible to do this and stay on budget right now.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean,
But
go ahead.
47,000 for the pole for the barn.
The county barns, yeah.
So we're not collecting it anymore?
Okay, so we budgeted, this is years ago, over a decade ago, we budgeted inside the budget to pay for the bond $47,000 a year. When the bond was paid off, that money was reallocated throughout the budget.
So it was still collected?
As it's part of our entire tax collection,
Correct.
and then we identify.
Still collected?
Yep. So we are still doing that.
Correct. Okay. So $10,000 of that goes to the highway department? Did I misunderstand that?
Well, Frank, at this point, we're like 12 years removed from where that money got reallocated. That money sort of shifts around, right, as it is. What we did was we took 25 grand of that a year and we put it into the building reserve fund.
Yeah.
And then the other 22,000 went other places. Sometimes it went highway equipment, sometimes it went everywhere. But 25 was certainly identified for building
So we're
reserve.
talking about taking 10 of the 25 that was going into the highway equipment to be used on this?
What I'm talking about is right now we have $58,000 in that budget for highway equipment, as well as a highway reserve, as well as FEMA money. I'd like to take the 58 after that payment is done, and I'd like to reallocate that 58. We already have 25 still every year carrying over. So from that 58, I'd take 10, and I'd apply it to the 25 to make 35. That pays our bond. 48 goes somewhere else. I don't know where it goes yet.
1 or 2 meetings before, didn't I recall that we were going to and did buy a new truck?
We approved a new truck 2 years ago. We have made two $58,000 payments. Correct me, Rich?
Well, Westminster paid for 3 years, 2 or 3 years ago, and we was putting the $58,000 in. The new truck was around $130,000.
Thank you.
So it should be, when that gets here, it says in Rochester, we're supposed to get it last November. And due to the COVID and this and that, it's sitting in Rochester right now, waiting for them, that company to service it, and then it'll be here, I think around $130,000.
So we're making
for, is that 130 paid for?
Yeah, we're making a $58,000 payment for this year's budget, and then next year, we don't, that 58 goes back into other departments. Unless we approve a new purchase or whatever, you know?
Yes. Yes. That was one of the questions I had.
Yeah, so that's why I think that, I understand building costs are high, I understand the climate's not good, but my opinion is that we're in a great position. We have identified the money, and the FEMA funds, while the disaster was a disaster, the FEMA funds and the savings that are being experienced by the projects on the highway crew, that money needs to go back to them so that the taxpayers don't get soaked with continued bonding for the building and high equipment purchases. We're very lucky that we have the FEMA money to be able to put that towards highway purchases, which frees up the budget.
At this time, there's a caveat there. So the way the consultants explained it is if you show any favorability, you don't celebrate and spend that favorability because you've got a marathon. You've done your first sprint, yay, we came out in the green. But you don't even think about spending that because you've got another 50% of your small projects to do. And then once you do that, you take, hopefully you're in the green and you haven't absorbed it due to construction content cost and increases, but hopefully you have a buffer. That buffer can then be used to augment the bonds for the larger project completion tasks.
No, that's actually not, the large projects are bid out and paid for completely by the government. We don't bond them out, we don't do any of that. The large projects are bid and paid for. We don't experience any savings on them.
That's not my
understanding. Large projects, you had to put the money up.
Yes, we do as a community.
So that, my apologies.
We have to face the bond.
So we'll get into the details here. There are two buffers when it comes to FEMA. There are small projects and there are large projects. The large projects, I can't remember the threshold, but it's around 208,000, 210,000. Any project that costs more than that are considered large projects, and those are directly paid, or we pay first, but then the government directly pays that full amount. If they are small projects, they come in under that amount. I'm going to throw some round numbers here. If there's a project that estimated to cost $100,000, the government sends us 87.5% of that money, and then we go fix it. We get the money first, we go fix it. If these guys do it better than that cost, we keep the money. So I identified $3.6 million initially as the total cost of all of our projects. About half of that, a little over half of that is in large projects, a little under half is in small projects. Rick, do you have any inkling at the end of the day, when you get done with all of your small projects, how much money you think you have saved from all of those small projects?
I don't know. How many small projects are there?
What, 13, 14, something like that, 15?
you could probably figure about $30,000 or $40,000 a project.
So we're looking at,
We got about 1.5 million in small projects.
so what he's saying is that our town highway is going to do such an efficient job fixing the projects that were identified that essentially we're going to save $300,000 to $400,000. I believe that's what you just said, right? That was the math that I did quickly. So there's our second buffer. It's a little bit different because the large project money, we got to spend first and then get reimbursed, whether that's Cat Elbow Bridge, highway equipment, or a town hall or whatever. But the small project money is in our bank account right now. It's, I put these up there. The DB Highway Fund outside Village had $1.2 million. We only budget about 600 and something thousand to the highway department every year, so there's quite a bit of money in that.
Kyle, the majority of our green for his first phase of small projects is because we were paid for the equipment utility during the flood. So the wear and tear on our equipment, which we think conceptually, no big deal. You know, it was a couple month event for cleanup, no big deal. But there was significant hours, significant duty cycle. The environmental conditions were favorable. So we were reimbursed for the depreciation, the accelerated depreciation of the equipment. So that's part of what put us in the green. It wasn't always being under budget a project that helped. But the advice that we were given, if you want to come out of this and maximize your return, you can't spend, you can't put that as collateral because you haven't gone all the way through the process. You build as much as you can because there will be projects that you'll lose on and you'll go the other way, and you need that safety. The second thing is, like I said earlier, you need that money to offset any bond for large projects, so we don't have to take a loan on top of a loan for a community center, at least within the next year and a half to 2 years.
Correct, though our consultants did advise us to do bond anticipation notes that give us a year delay before significant payments are made because of the concept of the large projects. So hypothetically, we should not be having to come to the public 14 times for bonding resolution. I mean, I agree with what Luke is saying. The buffer is important. We have many different avenues to accomplish our goals here. I think the highway department is in excellent shape.
Until we go to replace the equipment that's worn.
But and so now the conversation that we're having about that is the large project FEMA money, the abandonment of Cat's Elbow and Ames Road to pay for that equipment. So, you know, the concerns are legitimate and they require the utmost diligence and planning. But to me, it seems as though we have identified each sector with funds that we've been allocated without tax increases. I don't know how else to present it. We're going to save hundreds of thousands of dollars on a small project, and we could potentially have $800,000 for equipment too.
I guess if we got such a good deal on this building, why would we want to waste all the money? And as far as like a budgeted $900,000 to $950,000 building, how come we couldn't do it for half?
What do you mean, how come we couldn't do it for half?
There's got to be some give and take with the people as far as what we need and how it's done.
Sure, so I'll address it in two ways. We're going to talk about the needs, the building needs of the town, and I'll talk about the price. We don't have a lot of room on price. We have the methods that we have to go out, we put everything out to bid, we're subject to prevailing wage. We have estimations on what square footage costs to build. We're not in too good of a position to negotiate that, and there's not any avenues for us to negotiate better prices, really, except for accepting different bids. In terms of needs, as I've expressed before, I think we've already sacrificed needs. I thought Luke made a great point about the document storage, which, hearing it here for the first time, I need to go do a bunch of math to figure out what makes sense. Because if it's $5 grand a year, as $6 grand a year, as opposed to
$5,000 of a bond,
That
you
might
know.
be a little higher, but.
We don't, yeah. So I think it's a great idea that we should certainly incorporate going forward. I mean, I think that's the perfect sort of thing that comes out of a meeting like this. So we'll evaluate that and we'll see if we can shave off a few grand or eliminate some square footage or something like that. But I feel as though we have already sacrificed true needs, though maybe we are able to reduce those needs. Am I missing something about the cost of construction? Because
As far as the cost?
well, you said, why can't we do it for half, or why can't we do it for less? And I'm missing.
Ben triggered me though, because when we were at 950, that was with the community center. That was 2 months ago. That was 950 with the 400 square foot ante area.
It was more than 2 months ago. We changed approach when we met over here in like September or October or something like that.
Okay, so that was 950 then.
Yeah.
So why is it 950 now, and now we don't get the community
Does
center?
anybody want to talk about building costs between October and today? Because that's why.
So we lost the community center.
Yes.
So we're here having a meeting about building the building, we're saying, I don't understand.
What do you mean?
Why would we build it when it's gonna cost 3 times as much for materials, we're not gonna get as much of them today?
Well, I mean, I'm also hoping that building materials come down, because I've been looking to build houses and do other things, but we don't actually have data to back that up. So everything that I've seen in my entire life, prices only go up. If it's a bubble and it'll pop, but we don't have data to support that. We don't. I guess the pure question is, does the town government just stop on their, like, we have needs, do we stop and wait without a metric to continue on?
It's been 10 years, I mean.
I know, and I got elected and got right on this to finish the project because it's been 10 years. That, I mean, everybody knows what the status of the old building is, but if we're gonna talk about putting the project off, I'm rooted in data, Luke's rooted in data. I need some sort of identifiable metric to know when to proceed.
Kyle, there was an associate, I don't remember her name on the call, that basically said, okay, I see the potential value of a phased approach, but then when do you revisit?
Yeah.
So for me, that's the question. Do we revisit monthly at monthly board meetings? Where's our threshold of what we think we can do for that money? Because I feel like, 950 with the community center, and that was too high, and now it's 950 without a community center, that, it just doesn't, it loses all value.
Right.
So
then when we come back and the building prices drop, do we go back to the drawing board and say, now we have enough for community center? So we have a box here and we are letting it out of the box. To me, I think, I understand costs are high. I understand the timing is not great. I do still think it's affordable for the community and for the town. I think there's greater risk in waiting than building. This is a community need, and I think that we should proceed. The phased approach is a good idea, but I don't see how it practically works because it'll still be a significant spend. It'll still be a very significant spend.
And I still see this space being larger than the space we've been in. I've been in for 10 years, more than adequate. We have almost no turnout. Court, you get a couple people in for court, great. If it's too much, hold court 2 days a month instead of 1 day a month. We can't, we're gonna take on $1 million debt when 20% of our people can't pay or didn't pay, not can't, they didn't pay their taxes this year, with a 55-cent gas hike per gallon coming because the state's broke. And we're still gonna take that $1 million to build something bigger that we know that footprint adequately accommodates for the 4 people that show up to a board meeting on a normal day in the normal court traffic for Ovid and Lodi. If that's a problem, you make amends. That's what this community does. Look at Cat's Elbow. You don't put $1 million bridge in, you drop a rail car tank in there and cover it over. And it worked for 40 years. Had there been a proper $1 million bridge there, it would have washed out too. Or at least would have likely have washed out. So for me, it's just, I don't know how else to articulate the timing is wrong. The intent is good. The intent is 100% good. in the credibility to date is 100%. Getting this facility, partnering with the church, partnering with the food pantry, that's goodness. That's community, that's fantastic. That's just, 20%, I don't know how to repeat, 20%, on and on and on.
So let's
The
address the
signals-
20% of people who need help by passing a tax exemption.
But then, hold on, guys, hold on. The proposal is, you help the 20% of the people that can't pay their taxes by charging the people who do pay the taxes, and then they move. Pam Helming, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, and I will always say, I don't feel that this board has ever made a decision. I challenge any board member, and I have done this over the 10, 12 years I've done this. Did we make a Democratic or a Republican-based decision tonight? Not one person has ever been able to answer that. And I find it absolutely perplexing, because I can't answer it myself. But what I can tell you is without certainty, we're heading down a bad path. And I don't know how to put data, I don't know how to, it was a McKinsey study. It was a McKinsey study that you pay for. It says, what are the brightest minds in America say is going to be our recovery? It's not my mind, I'm just reading the report. And I feel fortunate I have access to that intelligence. So I can make decisions for my community, for my friends, family, neighbors, based on what I have the good fortune to see. And I just, for the life of me, it's one person, and I need to learn that I'm just one person. But at the end of the day, it's the timing, guys, is wrong. And like I said, I'll share those credit card bills with you. It goes nowhere. You're building costs. Instead of seeing something, wow, I've got a shopping full cart at Lowe's, there's nothing, and it's $400.
Right, the problem is, look, it's supply chain issues.
Yes.
So that's why I'm confident. I mean, right now, you just can't get the stuff. We went to get 2 fiberglass showers the other day. Earth Supply, which is a big company, had one left in the company, their entire company. Home Depot, Lowe's had none. These are typical things you can walk in there, load them up and go. It's just the supply chain, everything is backed up right now. It'll straighten out. Who knows when?
That's right.
6 months or a year, whatever. It'll get better.
So right now, my perspective on this is actually more simple than everything that we've boiled down. When I came into office, this board, and it seemed the community was comfortable with the $900,000 spent for a new town hall. That's what I was elected on, that's what I ran on. I had Republicans and Democrats alike saying, get it done. Right now, here we are, a year and a half later, in the worst building climate imaginable, and here I am presenting a $900,000 town hall building. I know all of the other elements that have changed. The project is the same. The bonds are similar. Everything is so similar. Why were we willing to spend $900 for the end result of a town hall that met all of our needs then, and we are not willing to do it now?
Because there was not anything there when we started, and now you're in a building having a meeting.
That's what, so what, Frank,
So it should
Frank,
cost $900,000.
so the method is more important than the end result. Because to me, I believe it's the end result. We need a new town hall that fits all of our needs. We're willing to spend $900. I mean, if you guys want to haggle over the cost of building materials for the next 3 years, we can do it. I mean, we can do it. What's going to happen is that if we do that, and by the way, if we wait till 2024, it's a different board. If we wait till next year, it's a different board. So all of this could dissolve and change. We have all of our keys in place. Ann,
Yeah.
I saw your hand over here too.
If you decide to go ahead and do this, about when do you think you put a shovel in the ground?
We get a timeline from the architect in 3 weeks. So I don't have the answer.
I'm guessing 6 months at the earliest.
You would hope, and then we're talking about the winter season, so realistically, if all went to plan, we're talking about next spring.
So material prices might be entirely different in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. But if you don't proceed with the plan, then you're still behind the 8 ball. You still don't have anything.
Yeah, even Luke said proceed with the plan as we're going. My issue is that he's also proposing another plan, which would require design documents, which we've already.
But Kyle, your footprint, the foundation is pre-existing, the roof truss, your walls, Everything's pre-existing. That's your load-bearing content in a pole barn. So you're simply moving walls to make your needs. So it's the cost, the design, the level of engineering input is very, very low. You're not investing in your utilities. You're not investing in footer, foundation, structural elements. It's not structural. Those are non-structural walls. So the cost should be disproportionately low for taking a rectangle. This is essentially a rectangle, just like what we're in, and saying, hey, architect, we're not going with the big merged building or the rooms and the ante-rooms, and we're going to cut into this post, and you're going to need a header analysis to show that this isn't going to, this is okay under lateral and shear forces and whatever else. We can do what we want. It's a pole barn and move the walls. That's the one beauty of this structure. And it gets us by that hump. So if we're going to take that bond out, we get something for it in terms of value. So that's one. The second thing is we get to read more on our community. Where are we headed? Where are we going? Are we going to see more people not paying? Because that to me is equally unsettling. The supply chain disruption, the extra price, and then the factor that our people can't pay their tax. That's huge. That's a huge red flag.
Does anybody know the current dimensions of the current town hall? Because I believe the footprint is actually like 700 square feet larger or something like that. I think it's like
usually you have to go by inside because those walls are
right. But think about the utility room. Think about the bathrooms. I mean, even if we spend the extra design documents or whatever, even if it's inexpensive to do this 2,048 square foot, we are already inadequate in our needs. We are already inadequate in our needs. This is inadequate. We cannot simply just renovate and accomplish our needs. Perhaps,
but we do it today, Kyle. We're in there today, and we have more than enough space. Have you ever felt cramped?
It's bigger.
Have you ever felt cramped in that old building? Not once.
Never.
Never. Has anyone in this room ever felt cramped in the town hall that we're currently in?
Because we have 1,000 square feet of storage upstairs with safes and documents.
So safes and documents we covered will handle through imaging. That's easy. We shouldn't have those up there. That's a condemned area. We shouldn't even have people walking up there. We're not legal to do so.
So I want to go back to the point where we convened a building committee of all of the stakeholders, and they identified the bare bones needs. And those bare bones needs are greater than the footprint in this building, and it's greater than 2,000 square foot. If it is irresponsible for us to abandon the needs, it is irresponsible for us to build anything less than we need. Mike.
Mike up. We're gonna pole barn, right? If it's available, still available, the engineered pole barn display building, there's two sitting on the farm-based lots, is possibly up for sale. Now, if you can get them buildings a third of the cost or half the cost of what you're talking about, to tear down and put back up.
Sure.
If that is something that your committee can look at, and maybe that'll change. I mean, that one building, the same footprint, or bigger than this place right here.
Excellent. Mike, I'm going to cut you off. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Great outcome, great recommendation as part of this process. Here's my goal. We have engaged with an architect who is going to tell us that our needs have a project cost of $900,000. We can identify less document storage, we'll shave it off. We can identify cheaper materials, we'll shave it off. But we need the power to be able to fulfill the project as it exists. And then this is a bond anticipation note. If we shave our savings, we will borrow less. My ultimate point here is, let's not shortchange ourselves. Let's not do ourselves an injustice. Let's do that. That's an excellent idea, Mike. I saw a couple of ladies over here who raised their hands. So whichever one would like to go.
Sounds like
Guys.
Get an email from them.
Hey guys, if you could just for a moment, please.
it
sounds like we have an additional attribute to this project compared to before, and that is you have the pantry and the community center, where the existing town hall didn't have those goodness elements, and there's a lot of synergy there. So I've noticed there's a lot of outpouring towards the fiscal outpouring towards the needs, especially now because it's such a bad time. There's a lot of fiscal outpouring for food pantry work, and so even without fiscal outpouring, I know the pantry members that I'm seeing here will work outside, will work out of anywhere, but that work is going to continue in this hard time, no matter what. And so, same with the community center needs. That's just going to happen. We're going to just make sure it happens. So what you're working towards now, there's a lot of outpouring. So I don't think I think there's a lot of unanticipated goodness factor of what you're trying to do, even during the bad time, is what I'm observing.
Thank you, Nancy.
Can I get just a little clarification here on that? When that 20% that didn't pay taxes, is that that's monetary value or numbers of people?
No, people need to pay. Yes, it's a dollar amount.
Yeah.
That's a dollar amount. So we're missing, say, 240, 250,000.
I think it's 220 in county identified.
Based on like
222 and change.
$1 million revenue.
Correct. So maybe if you exclude, which we do, we exclude the ambulance and fire, it's roughly 25%.
So, I mean,
That's the red light.
What did we have last year, 10%?
It was almost 100%. We had almost, it was maybe 96, 97%, Connie? Hey, we were worried, right? Because we were all locked down, people had lost their jobs. We were worried, what is it gonna do? We were coming off of some devaluation property. What impact is that going to have on our community? And we were, to me, it was so, it gave confidence that the people, even in the middle of COVID, would almost at 100%. It was the highest it had been in years for paying in. So to me, if someone's struggling and they're still going to pay their taxes, that's even more pressure on us to make sure you do your job right. And so it was definitely, I was a little surprised it was that much this year. So on $1 million spend, say 25% didn't pay.
I think it's important that because of that we have no basis for knowing. We haven't done any kind of study here. We don't know why that happened, right? And we don't know if there's been any time in the past when that has happened.
Not that amount, not that I remember, not my tenure.
Well,
no.
yeah, it's not just your tenure, but I mean over the last 50 years. I mean, what is? I have no idea about what the record is. Payment or life payment.
So let's address that at the general meeting in a couple of weeks, and we can pursue a more comprehensive understanding of, frankly, the state of, our revenue.
Yeah. I just think we don't have a full understanding of where things are coming from.
And if that's the case, if people are having a hard time paying taxes, we need to find out why, and we need to identify how to help them, because we do want them to stay, and we do want them to thrive. Bill, did you want to go?
The only quick question I had was in regards, you had mentioned that it was 2 engineers or 2 architects that you're dealing with directly in regards to the building and whatnot. And would it happen to be Pavilion Wage, because it falls under the different jurisdiction? My question is, could any of that versus it be Sessler and whatnot, could that be open to any of your local contractors? We have a community that is full of wonderful talent that if we are in a sense where there's that much of people that can't afford their tax, is there a way that if we're gonna spend money on this, can we keep that money with our people?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, in a sense, is that a
We would love
potential?
to, we would love to, so.
Or
since-
are we bonded and directly, we are only allowed to deal with these companies and that's that? You know, because your people might be a little more willing to spend their tax dollars if it's staying in their community.
We have to put everything out to bid. So if local contractors want to get in on it, they got to bid on our projects. We can't just assign it, because that's where you get cronyism and nepotism and things like that. So when it comes to the engineering work that we've done, those are pretty limited. I don't think there's an engineering company in town. I could be wrong. But we have to rely on reliable, acceptable engineers that can know how to fill out FEMA paperwork and whatnot. So yeah, we would love to see local contractors get involved and bid on the projects, but it's their responsibility.
So will that be an option?
Yeah.
When we get closer to the project?
So what we do is, right now, we're in the design phase of this town hall. We've hired an architect and signed a contract, and that architect will deliver final documents, design documents that can be handed to a general contractor to build the site. When those design documents are done, we will have a estimated cost of the project that will go out for proposals, and contractors across the state will issue a bid to us. And then this board will decide which bid we accept. You could get in trouble for arbitrarily assigning a bid to locals, but we can certainly evaluate all of that.
I was just wondering if there was gonna be like an open session where if anybody local wanted to, they would have the opportunity to potentially be able to put some money back in, or maybe that would be their community service of, hey, look, I've been here all my life, I'd like to help with this project going forward, or who knows?
Yeah, so those get issued in the newspaper. We talk about it in our town meetings. I don't know what other sort of advertising you think would be prudent, but we put it out there, that's for sure. When we put out the design documents, the design request, the request for proposals for the design, we got like 36 or 44 or something like that. It's crazy. We've never seen that many people who wanted the work. So Luke had identified that fact, and we actually knocked them down, I think, 10% or something like that. So that was good. Mr. Copper.
One of my concerns is when we move on to the existing town hall, what are you gonna do with the building?
Yeah, I raised that early on tonight. I raised that issue early on tonight, and, I don't have an actual estimation for what it'll,
My guess is.
we haven't addressed it, is the real answer. Say it again?
I'm gonna cost $100,000 to tear that building down. It's gotta be somebody like Seth, as you put in the insurance, who's done major projects.
Yeah.
It can't be somebody with a pickup truck.
So they could knock it down.
The other thing is, you said that the county takes over the taxes and reimburses us.
Yeah.
Don't forget that they're billing the taxpayer 12% interest on that.
And I'll also remind you again that we pay a higher county tax rate than all but one other municipality, because we've chosen not to devalue.
So we're not getting into the interest money, the county's getting the interest.
I don't know, but I would assume so, yeah.
So I feel badly that people can't pay their taxes.
Me too.
On the other hand, I don't feel badly for the county for reimbursing us, because they're making money on us.
That's right.
That's fair. Yeah, and I think the primary point in regards to the town hall is that this will not affect taxes.
The other thing is, I didn't realize, I know it's public knowledge, that the town already bought those vacant lots on Church Street.
You bought that 4 years ago, 5 years ago? One lot,
So I think
two
we
lots.
better look at putting those out and get a real estate broker, somebody to try to market those and get our money for them.
Yeah, I agree, and that goes back to the sort of diligent planning that we need to do. We're not starting to, but little by little, we're identifying more and more needs here throughout these conversations. And so we should be able to identify what we want to see happen with those lots before we put them out on the market. Otherwise, they could be junkyards, and they could be, you know what I mean? So we can put some contingencies on that to make sure that we sell it in the proper way, and that is our intent. I believe, we haven't discussed it, but that's our intent.
Just be prepared for the big bill.
Pardon? Oh, you mean for the tear down?
It's gonna be expensive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mass there.
I don't currently know how to proceed on that. It's been a thought in my mind, but, this project.
That's where somebody could come in and give you a ballpark on it, give you a bid. But I think it's probably as a courtesy, if they're from the area and want to move, you know, they can take a look at it.
I suppose it would be valuable to know that in this very moment, but we are still residing in that building. We do not have a place to go, and they cannot tear it
We're not
down.
gonna tear it down because.
Right, but how far away are we? I mean, if you think it's a prudent idea to include it in this project, which I do, but I'm not pushing for that, sure, then let's engage on it, but we have to identify the time to do that, and I don't think that's now. If it is now, let me know.
No, let me know so I can be out of it.
I agree, though, I agree, because with that too.
My friend too.
Then we begin the next conversation about that, which is what does that lot of land become as well? Because that's a town-owned lot, and, you know, we don't have a town park. That's where I would go with it, but that's a different conversation for another
Why
day.
can't we use the lot that was already cleared for a park then?
Or we
The lot
could
where
do,
it was cleared
yeah,
for
so those are all,
the original
those are all
town hall
conversations for
stuff.
later.
Is there,
Yep,
you
yep,
know,
yep.
So Kyle, would you entertain holding off and at least discussing with the architect what a phase one retrofit of the pole barn structure would look like? In a preliminary assessment, it shouldn't take more than several hours of engineering time to do. That seems very reasonable. And having that discussion in our next board meeting to vote through a budget plan or a budget plan for this project.
Of course, I would consider it. I'm thinking of the practical elements right now, which would be changes to the directions we've already given them. So we'd have to change our not to exceed.
No, not change the contract. Just ask them for an estimate based on the square footage of this. They already are aware of the needs assessment from the building committee. We can eliminate the storage, document storage is a best practice, you know, in addition to cost savings. But have them keep the contract as is. The only amendment would be an hourly engineering fee charge to do the analysis for this floor plan for that fitment. I wouldn't think it would take more than a half a day for a drafter to sit down and configure this for discussion, to say, what's it going to cost to reconfigure this from an estimate perspective? So we can at least have a discussion. This is what it would cost for phase one if we chose to do it. We know what you're planning to spend for phase two, but at least we'd have that data for a phase one decision to say, you know, maybe this is or isn't the right time.
I see Yvonne shaking her head about the document storage, but I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong because you have more experience with this because you dealt with the engineers before, but I don't think they're gonna give us a 4-hour rate to give us a floor plan or a concept for this. I don't think they're gonna do that work for 4 hours and charge us like $160 or $300.
Well, they're probably $150 an hour, so maybe $200 an hour.
I mean,
about $1,000.
So the question that I would ask the architect is, we would like a conceptual idea if we can fit our needs. We're asking for a floor plan.
But not a floor plan that has a stamp drawing. You're asking for an overlay.
Right, so that's.
Most architects will do an overlay at no charge.
We just signed a contract and the guy told us it's gonna be a month for the overlay.
That's a detail.
It's not detailed.
That's more detailed than what we need to estimate space. That's all.
I mean, I'm willing to engage with the architect to ask that question, but if it's more than $600, can we abandon it? I mean, I don't, I guess my hesitancy is that we've already blown 30,000 on the drawings last time.
Yeah.
And now we have a signed contract for 36 that we are already, literally 5 days after I met with the architect, changing the game again.
I don't necessarily I wouldn't change anything in that current plan.
The current plan that the architect is developing.
I would have the addendum come out and say, what's this going to look like from a cost perspective? We have the square footage. We know objectively that there's enough space in this facility to equal what our space is in the other facility.
I don't believe that's true.
With the court, I don't think we could do it, because you have to have jury rooms. If we could make those in the offices, then we'd be close.
Okay.
So we did evaluate that.
So how do we do that? How do we do that in the old facility?
We're inadequate as it is.
We don't have, I'm Yvonne Cook, I'm the court clerk for Owen and Lodi. We don't have room right now to, put a witness so that they're by themselves, other than back with me in my office. And sometimes that witness can sit there for 2 or 3 hours waiting to be called to provide his testimony. And what they use now is the kitchen to deliberate. Is a kitchen appropriate place for people to deliberate?
Which then means if that is occupied, then attorney-client conversations have to happen somewhere else.
Outside.
Sometimes outside, you also.
So,
Which is inadequate.
so it's inadequate, it's not ideal, but maybe there's enough space to make that happen. You know,
I don't know how to say this, except for we spent a year establishing the absolute bare bones needs, and this is not adequate. This is 200 square feet at the minimum below what we need. I mean, well, it's a different story because the utility room is a bigger building and stuff, but I'm happy to ask, I'm happy to be considerate of alternate approaches, but I don't think it's a good one. I don't think it's adequate.
Fair enough. Do you feel any sense of risk knowing that 25% of our population, of our citizens, 25% of that money coming in to run our business is missing this year?
I have concerns for the people. I don't have concerns about the fiscal welfare for the town. Because the town is covered by the county.
Yes, but next year they have to, they will have to be able to come up with twice the amount or lose their property.
So in my opinion.
If they couldn't afford to pay their taxes
Agreed.
this year, is there a guarantee that next year they can pay twice their taxes?
Let me ask you this. If we spend $300,000 less on this building, do you think our taxes are going down?
I don't think their taxes are going down any way, shape, or form.
So the people who
But
can't
they
pay their
maintain
taxes is not a town hall issue. It is an economic issue, but it is not an issue for this town hall. Because again, this town hall is tax neutral.
That's fine, but
we
you're
should
not showing any compassion or anything for people on fixed incomes
Lynn?
that can't afford to pay their taxes.
I proposed 3 months ago, I proposed a tax exemption for seniors and disabled that this board roundly dismissed. So I am showing compassion. I tried to give those folks 5 to 50% off of their taxes because it's important that we do so they can pay their taxes. So if you think I'm not showing compassion, forgive me, but we do need to address that issue. It's just not as a part of this town hall.
It would also be great help if you can pay on installments. And other towns are that way, and at least it eases it over the course.
No issue with that.
9 months or whatever.
No issue. Any way we can get the money that helps people out, that's fine, that's fine.
I work in the revenue service, not the assessment or the county aspect of it. It's something that we.
We'll look into that.
But it's way over here compared to what I do.
So, I mean, I hear the cost savings, I hear all of that stuff, but let's address the issues as they come up. Let's address the folks who can't pay their taxes and find out why.
We don't even know where that money, the people who owe that money, we don't know anything about who they are.
We don't know if they're
For all
wealthy
we
folks.
know, half of them are very rich people who are just playing some kind of game with.
The majority of people who didn't pay, the truth is, it came from the village. That's the truth.
What we are seeing at the county level as well, we've gotten a lot of letters. We're getting a little off topic here. I want to bring us back to the town hall, but what we're seeing is a lot of landlords that are looking for moratoriums on paying their taxes. We've been getting a lot of letters.
Now we need to get our census reports.
At the county level, we've been receiving a lot of letters asking for property tax moratoriums.
That's nothing to do with Lodi, we're talking about Lodi taxes.
I understand, I'm just giving an anecdotal experience that I serve on the county board as well as your supervisor, so it's just a piece of information. That's what we're seeing at the county level, but we don't actually have the data.
Well, I'll say it one more time, and I won't say it again. How on earth? I don't know, something something's wrong with me, folks. If you're
25%
missing,
of the dollars you're
if
used to
you're
having
missing
are not in there.
25% of your income,
Of your income.
25% of your
It
income's
doesn't come
gone,
back.
you don't go take $1 million bond. That's not the time to do it. It's as simple as that.
Taking $1 million bond.
You're taking 950, or you're taking 700 or 800, it's still wrong.
It's not, it's like 500.
It's just wrong.
It's not.
It's not, it can't be 500.
It's 550.
Your
is the
total
amount.
bill's 950, there'll be at least 50 to 100K of overrun. There always is on $1 million project, 5 to 10%, they budget it in. So you're already over, you're at $1,050,000. You got $1,050,000, we've got 200,000 in the bank. So 200,000 minus $1,050,000 is 850,000. 850 grand when 25% of your income is missing? You don't do that.
It's, to me,
That's simple. That's 1 and 1 is 2.
I've been very respectful, considerate, it's okay. And again,
It's bugging me.
guys,
It's
there
like-
are so many issues and distractions that would make us say no. It's so easy. We have not lost, the township has not lost any money from folks not paying their taxes. We have not. If you want to address the needs of the residents, let's do that. But this project doesn't have anything, if we don't build this project for 10 more years.
It does though, Kyle.
It does.
It does.
It does.
It does. Yes, the county pays the difference. How long are they gonna pay the difference for?
Forever, they always have.
They take your property.
Until they take your property, exactly.
So,
See,
it's
have fun in that cardboard box, honey.
Timing, it's just timing.
Gone.
It's
timing.
Yeah, I don't,
Have fun in the
folks, I
car.
don't think we're gonna get any further here tonight.
Agreed.
I wanna go back over the budget numbers. 200,000 in savings right now, 125,000 in grants from the state. That's 325,000, a $550,000 bond on top of that's 875. I mentioned earlier that we think that the court is gonna have $30,000 to $60,000 in grants. That puts us between 905 and 935. That is exactly within the range. Is a $550,000 bond for 20 years at $35,000 a year. That's it. It's very clean. I'm trying to take the FEMA money out of it. I'm trying to take all the, we'll apply for grants here, and we'll apply for grants there, because that's wishful thinking. I agree. I know we have a difference in opinion. He's made his points. I believe that we're in good fiscal health, and we have no guarantees of a better climate coming up for many years.
Go ahead. 950K, 2,000 square feet. Addition.
2124 is the exact number right now, but 2,200 would actually meet our needs.
What's the exact number right now, Kyle?
2124.
Okay, so 950,000 divided by 2124 is 447. That's without any 5 to 10% overrun.
Say that again, what is it?
950,000. Let's call it $1,050,000, because that's.
Let's not.
No,
Let's call it 950.
Let's call, okay, we'll start, but I don't think we'll be there. But 950,000, guys, hold on. 950,000 divided by 2124.
It's, no, hold on. It's not just the building. That's not just the building. It's site work, it's septic, it's the whole project from start to finish.
Sure, and then you still have another 150,000 that you need to put on top of it.
If you want to
address
include
the
it.
building that is there.
If you want to include it now, we could. We're trying not to, because we're trying to keep the
Well,
project just.
that's not gonna go away, that's
I
still gonna be
understand.
an expense, it's still gonna be a hinder over,
Absolutely,
you know?
we need to address it, yes. If you're making the case that we actually need more money for this project, yes, I would agree with you, yes. We have many needs. That building is a risk, that building is dangerous. If that building falls down without us taking it down, we got bigger issues.
I agree with that. Yep.
And that was my question,
We cannot.
realistically, how much longer do you think it's going to build?
Guys, they identified the building as a risk 12 years
But
ago.
here's the thing too, though. I agree with the risk and you working there, but you're working on behalf of Ovid, correct?
I'm working for both towns
You
right
work
now.
for both towns, so you're a clerk for both communities. How many days a week are you in that environment?
Between 4 days a week.
So, and we
Sometimes 5.
did mold testing, that came back positive, yes. So there's alignment 100% that we need to move out of that building.
The question is the approach, and we're working through it, we're working through it. So, again, thank you, yes, you're right, yes to all. Yeah, my kids do fit in the bath apparently. So I think where we're at is we have some considerations to make. It would be really difficult to leave this meeting without some sort of consensus. I think the end result here is a desire for two things, which would be to engage with the architects, to see what it would cost, to ask them to mock up a floor plan just for this. I mean, is that the only ask? And then, or to do the phased approach?
No.
Or bare bones.
They keep going with what they're doing. We're not stopping that.
Yeah.
Okay. What we're asking for is a phase one, take the square footage. They know, hopefully in their map, the first thing they do in their needs assessment is take our detail, then they survey this property, not necessarily with a land surveyor, although they'll probably do that as well.
Where do you have it?
They come inside the building and they do the geometric layout of the building. They probably have the plans from the county. Seth, you forward those before we bought the place. So those are available. And based on the plans, this is our layout. So team, what do we have to minimally get by with? Because we don't want to spend X amount of dollars and get 2 offices off the back of the property for $950,000.
4 offices, pantry storage, new well, new site, new parking, new sewer. Security. There's a lot that goes into the project. It will be a fully equipped, yet still very humble building. It'll still be vinyl sided. It'll still be, it'll be a very humble building. And I have confidence that we can find savings in that.
And how many feet is our pantry storage?
It was 400. I think we're down to 324. Upon your request to remove the community room, we shaved needs off of everything else. So again, I want to make the point, we are sacrificing our needs. We have a responsibility to you to function properly, but we are sacrificing our needs. I'll make my last pitch. So Luke, I will engage with the architect and I will ask for that hourly.
You want to have a team call?
Sure, yes, please. But if that cost is prohibitive, I would recommend that we abandon that approach. My last pitch to you is, 5 years ago, you were told you're going to get a $900,000 building. That's what I'd like to promise you here today. That's what I want to continue on. We will fulfill all our needs for the same budget from 5 years ago. Building costs be damned. Mr. Batten, Mr. Thomas, would you like any, actually, I would like any last comments from the public as well. But Mr. Batten and Mr. Thomas, would you like to add anything here?
No, I agree that we can take the present fiscal situation and make it work for getting the bare bones needs, well, still with some sacrifice on the needs, and get what we need to have for town hall operation. And that includes building. I mean, I just don't think there's any way that this building is going to meet the needs, even the bare bones needs of what is required. I mean, the court itself has legal state mandates on spaces required for providing space for lawyers to meet with clients, and then there's a list of things there that we're not meeting, but we've figured out ways to do it in the other place, but not very well. And we've got, I was looking at the way things are set up here. We've got the 2 bathrooms taking up that whole area back there. That I guess we would probably have to go down to 1 bathroom. We don't have space for 2. I don't know if we can do that.
Well, we only have 1 bathroom now.
I know.
Yeah, if we did that, we were talking about.
I don't know what the requirements are.
We just need at least an ADA bathroom,
Yeah.
and neither of those. Are they ADA now? They are ADA now, right? Americans with Disabilities Act, they have to be accessible to disabled folks. Democratic bathrooms, we don't talk about that here.
Is there a difference?
More toilet paper. I don't know, it seems to be.
Just don't.
Paul, you wanna go?
What'd you say? No, I don't have too much more to say on this. I'm a little disappointed that we got stuck with this, we got kind of stuck in the whole development process after spending all of this time over these past years in developing these plans. And lots of head work has gone into trying to figure out what we really need to complete a nice vision for Lodi. And not just, bang up a quick pole barn with metal siding and some exposed 2x4s and say, make this work. I mean, we would never want to, you wouldn't want us to do that anyway. But the point is that we deserve to have something that is good for this community. And I just don't like the idea of trying to figure out ways to squeeze sideways through a portal that's going to get us into a space that we're not going to be happy with to begin with. Waiting for some kind of opportunity to expand on that down the road, but not really knowing what the future holds for us. Whereas right now, we can take the information we have and we can still make it work. It's going to be a little expensive, but when we first moved into this community in 1980, we had to get a mortgage at 17%. That was what they were back then. But we had to have a place to live. And, we just said, well, things are going to change somewhere, some way along the line. And they did. And we refinanced and, moved down the road. We still, there's a lot of money in those first 2 or 3 years. And went down the drain because we were paying that 17%. But that's life. We don't look back on that and wish that we had never moved here. We're sorry that we had to move here in those situations. And just like right now, I'm sorry we're having to deal with the financial cost, increased financial cost of the materials and that whole thing. And we're having to make some sacrifices for right now, even now because of that. But we can minimize that. And I think we're just walking down the wrong road if we try to kind of make do, take a make do approach with the idea that somewhere along the line, some point in the future that we don't really know for sure yet, that we are going to be able to actually grab that golden ring and get what we want, because who knows? So that's where I am.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Mr. Roder raised his hand. I'd like to go to him, follow up with Mr. Thomas. And then, for my sake, I know I don't want to keep us here too much longer. You've asked a lot of questions and comments, but I would like to get a sense from you on if, where you stand on these ideas so that we have an idea, I'm sure him and I are both sitting here going, yeah, they all agree with me. So we'd love to know. Mr. Roder.
Do you guys take advantage of the low interest rates on bonds?
1,000,000%. So
even
that's
the
a bet.
material is high, I guess one hand washes the other.
Yeah, so while the building climate's bad, the interest rate climate is about as good as it gets. So yeah, we would
consider all day long and talk about things and prices, nothing next year's gonna be, 4 years is gonna be. Labor goes up every day, and that comes down. You guys need a town hall. The older one is falling apart, and you say you got black mold, and who wants to work in there?
No.
So, you got the money already spent into this, you're already spending money into drawing, which is great, you know, you're getting some good stuff going, you got the ball rolling, I don't see, you got something, just this barn, or, you know, this thing here, you have to put all the security stuff in, you know, and then, so you spend all this money to put in here, I know stuff is expensive and everything else, but you put all the money into this, and then you want to do phase two, it could cost you even more, or you may never even get to phase two. And then you gotta take, you know, like the security stuff, and then you gotta, you know, change stuff, you know, other things to put your other add-on, maybe you're wasting another 100 or 200,000 doing that, who knows, if you do it now and get it done, maybe it's in a long time, maybe it'll be a saving.
Jim's took my point.
Maybe it won't. It may not, but we do need something.
But remodels are
We
almost
down
more
need
expensive
something.
than our systems.
Yeah, I think it's clear, you know, again, this is the first time we've heard that.
It's not 1980, this is 2021, you got rules, regulations you gotta abide by. It's just like, I mean, I've been working for people, just houses now are costing $300,000 or $500,000 just for, you know, your basic, 2,000 square foot house. I mean, so $900,000 probably, you know, for a building like this is probably not a terrible idea.
Yeah, so I'll say that, you know, he brought up a good point about the renovation aspect, which we didn't consider as part of the building committee because we didn't, you know, think it was a possibility. It sure seems like with that recommendation, it would be either renovate or
I can see,
add.
I can see
You know,
both.
it's not, I don't think it would be both, yeah.
Yeah, I see both points. You know, I think everybody brought really good feedback today, like other people say, maybe there's other ways of, you know, cut the cost down and stuff. And I know, like what Luke is saying, that he's 100% right. I mean, I got decisions I'm making right now. Do I do something now that, you know, I could lose $50,000 on if I waited a year, you know, but in the meantime, I got people wanting it today, so I gotta make decisions based on today. And then, you know, because you gotta still keep, like I said, you gotta help the community, you gotta help people that work people. So it is a tough decision, right? You know, but I don't think you're gonna go wrong by doing it. There's 5 years, 10 years from now, maybe this whole thing would cost 1.8 million. And then we still ain't got nothing, you know, and then you got this building, you still got the other building, who knows how long, you know, I mean.
That is the coin flip, right?
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Rutherford. Stephanie, you want any parting shots here?
Jim kind of take my point, so other things been said, I think it's been pretty roundly discussed. I was just gonna point out that the phased approach, because of the cost of materials right now, so it's so high, the phased approach seems like a good idea, but then you have to build on to that to meet our needs as a second phase. And the savings that we might get on the first phase might go out the window because you've got to redo things, because you don't know how long the time is going to be between phase 1 and phase 2. You've got to seal stuff out, and you've got to take it all back apart to make it all work, and so that could not end up savings anymore.
Yeah, you know, I think we touched on it with, by the time we get design documents, it'll be pretty close to winter, we probably won't build. So, you know, we're looking at a 6 to 12 month period where we have some time to evaluate what happens with building materials. So what I'd like to do now is, actually, I'd like to call on you individually. If you'd like to not say anything, that's fine, just say no, thank you. But just if you could give us some parting thoughts of, you know, which approach you'd like, or
So we can focus on the call too.
yeah. Ben, can Kim or Jack or Brad Huffines hear us?
Yes, they can.
Would you ask them if any of them would like to give us some thoughts? While we wait on them, I'm gonna hit 1 or 2 people in the room if that's all right. Frank, any thoughts to leave with?
I think we should do the phase. As far as thinking that we will get stuck, I can't believe that we'll be there. You guys don't get stuck on nothing.
Stuck right now.
No, you're doing this right now, moving us forward. I really believe the prices are coming down. If you can't build houses for people, it's gonna stop. I mean, you've got to be able to build houses for people. If they can't afford the houses, you can't build them for them. So they're gonna bring them down. It just gotta be. And so, yeah, I think you're gonna save money. If you just get enough, you gotta keep people out of that building. I don't know, will it make another winter?
No.
Well,
I would think so.
Yes, it
I would think
will.
so.
I mean.
It has to, Frank, it has to. It has
So
to.
you gotta there, but you gotta have some place to go to. To retrofit this place in Chino,
Thank you. Thanks, Frank. Not the younger?
Phase one, I think look into it, and at least price it out.
Not the elder?
What do you know, when do we know the price of the building? We keep talking about $950, and we don't know. You might go in there and, what do you find out? Can we really even make a decision? I mean, that's the whole thing, Kyle. When will you know? Once you get the bids, or will the architects give you an estimated cost when they do it?
The architect will deliver us the initial estimated cost of a rough floor plan in 3 weeks. However, based on the architect's input, the floor plan that we've provided at 2124 square foot likely fits between a 900 and 950,000 budget. So how the architect described it was, he is going to give us a very high elevation view of the budget, and as we get further along in the process, the budget narrows and narrows and narrows. It's sort of like the hourglass with the design documents, and then we get into general contracting, where we again take the high-end view and get narrow and narrow. But we will have an initial estimate for our proposed 2124. That's what the building committee came up with for square footage. The architect might change that to fit code. We proposed 6 or 7 foot hallways. We might need 8 foot hallways. You know, so that square footage might increase, it might decrease, but we'll have a number in 3 weeks.
Does that change based on the general contractors, like when the time comes for materials?
The architect says that they have a working relationships with general contractors, so they have the best idea that they can on current building costs. So yeah, of course, if we get, they're also going to deliver us a timeline with that first high-level budget estimation. So we'll know how many months in advance we'll be engaging with general contractors. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
It's sort of tough to answer. You know?
Well, you got folks here, right?
Thank you. Ben, go ahead.
Hey, it's Kim. This is my first town meeting, and I feel like we need this. We need to go forward with the original project, and I know I'm not a builder, but it seems like if we're talking about the possibility of not even getting to the building phase for another 6 to 12 months, we really don't know what the cost would be. And it is wishful thinking to hope things will change. I think, you know, with the state of the whole world, we just really don't know where anything is going, and we need this, you know, the needs have been expressed, and Lodi doesn't, like you said before, Kyle, I think, you know, Lodi doesn't really have a main street. I have a vision. I think people have visions for what could happen here. And there's a lot of energy in the pantry. I think Nancy Cook had mentioned. And there's a lot of goodness here. And I think we need to just go with the original plan. That's how I feel about it.
Ben, are they lined up?
Neither Jack.
Hi, Jack Burrows. I'm inclined, given all the effort that's gone into this planning process, I'm inclined to continue on the plan. I'm not I'm a builder, but I build smaller things. And I'm also stymied by the cost of materials. But in all likelihood, feet won't be on the ground doing this building for 9 months or a year, in all likelihood, if we continue on the plan. I'm just feeling like we have some momentum, we have some things going that that we're at risk of losing that momentum if we start cutting it up into pieces. So I'm inclined to be in support of continuing in this on the plan. Thank you.
Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Mr. Roder.
I'm sorry, support them.
Thank you. Marty Mazinski.
Let's get going.
Let's get going. Is there a thank you, Jim? My pantry friends in the back, I think it's Scott and Sherry. I was gonna say Cindy, I was so close. How about you folks?
I say, continue on phase one, and we rather have a community room and larger pantry.
You'd prefer the expansion of the current project?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sherry, you agree with that?
Yeah.
Scott and Sherry? They would like the community room as we initially proposed.
Or a bigger pantry area.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm very supportive of what everyone is doing, and I appreciate it, but my concern is taking care of the building once it's vacated. I really feel there should be a plan, so that people know, because I think it's gonna be a concern. And I think you're gonna have to have an answer for them, so you at least should be looking at the cost.
May I have your name for the record, please? Which car was yours? Carol? Ford. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Carol. We'll certainly talk about that.
Okay.
Thank you. Rose, right.
I would think it'd be best to do the original plan. If we start changing it up now, I think we're gonna run into other troubles. You don't wanna do like rereads, just keep backtracking on everything.
Thank you, Rose. For those of you who don't know, Rose serves on the Village of Lodi Board. Chairman Ahas, Chairman of the Planning Board.
Yes, if we can make this usable without redoing anything and get going on it and see how things go for phase 2 and phase 3, that might be something to consider. But watch every dollar. I mean, this is not a good time to just be, spending money and building.
Thanks, Dave. Teresa, not a Lodi resident, but she's the head of steps out of Ovid that serves the town of Lodi in very many ways.
Yes,
might as well be. I wish I was sometimes, but yeah, I actually live in the town of Waterloo. My name is Teresa Lard, and I'm the Steps Seneca Towns Engaging People for Solutions Director. I'm here tonight because we're nearing the end of our STEP project, another 3 years or so, and I thought about all the wonderful things that have happened and all the good things that were mentioned from folks today. And the idea of what an opportunity or a sustainability initiative for a neighborhood and resident-driven project. I won't go on and on about our many accomplishments, but there is energy and people do want to take action to improve their community, and they've done so in nearly 100 projects since our launch in 2013. So I think people need like a psychological and a physical home, and Steps has always been that, and we're not going anywhere right away, but the Life of Our Grant is another few years. It would be just amazing if we could have that in a community room here in Lodi.
Thank you, Teresa. Thanks for the work that you've been doing.
Yes, thanks, Teresa.
Yvonne.
Me?
Why not? No, you don't have to.
First of all, I don't live in the town of Lodi. I just work here. And I know this has been going on since I started here in 2013, talk about a new building and the reasons behind it. And I think that they're very solid. And I think now's the time to do something rather than wait and have something in.
Thank you, Yvonne. Lynn Roscoe.
I go along with starting on phase 1, using the money that you got. And it will give you a better idea of what what people can afford. I know the 2020 census should be printed pretty soon. That's something the planning board will be working with.
Until August.
Huh?
August, for details.
Okay. Because at this point, we can't even say for sure how many people live in the town or anything else. Those are the legal numbers you have to work with on most anything. And I would like to see the planning board be allowed to be involved a little bit more, you know.
I don't want to be dismissive of that point, and I don't want to throw Dave under the bus either, but a few months ago, Luke did ask us to appoint a planning board member to the building committee, and we appointed Dave. But Dave has not been, some of our meetings were on Zoom at the time, but you know, he hasn't taken an active role. I'm not diminishing anything, but we did follow the advice. If you'd like us to invite other members of the planning board into the board, Ben still thinks this is a church. If you can rise and open your hymn books to number 151, please. Thanks for the levity, Ben. We appreciate it. Lynn, if you'd like us to get more planning board members involved, I'll happily do so. Okay.
Well, I just think the planning board's just been forgotten about for many years from the get-go. And anything that we've done or tried to do has been filed and around filed. I mean, when things were brought to the town board over the years, I'm not going to live on anybody here, but the planning board does, we do meet and we do accomplish something, and we got the letter from you, and it's like, as we're going through it, we have questions about it and stuff, which is fine, that's part of all of it, but then we feel like we kind of just got punched in the stomach because it didn't give us time to look into anything. I mean, we get the letter one day and the next day.
There's a lot to do.
And I think there's a lot, I realize that, but I think there's a lot planning board can do and would love to do. And I'm tired of being kicked around, not being utilized the way we should.
Lynn, I hope that you see that my approach to the planning board has been engaging, and that we are soliciting your advice. You're here to advise us and to give us recommendations, and frankly, it's your responsibility to do that. We've given you a set of instructions and a wish list. It's up to you to meet.
Yeah, but we just got it.
I understand.
Let's be real.
I'm not making any demands of you.
And prior to that, nobody was including the planning board in anything. All of a sudden, we got this letter, which knocked our feet out from under us, because nobody's come, nobody's cared.
Lynn, I'd like to give you a call or come over sometime over the next week, and let's hash it out. That's all. I care. I want your input. Okay?
I'll meet you at the town hall some night.
Any night you want, I'm available.
Okay.
Your daughter to the next of you. I think Susan, is that right?
Yes,
You're
glad
welcome.
to meet you.
You too.
Thank you for what you're doing, huh?
Thank you.
So, a couple things. I definitely am supportive. I feel that it should be looked at as more of a phase thing. I understand nobody wants to be derailed. I think that we're a determined enough community. We haven't been derailed after 10 years. Why are we going to be derailed now? Like, I think we're going to push forward. And the reason I say the phase thing is it is crucial for them to be out of the unsafe environment. I spend time in there myself doing work with Board of Elections and whatnot. It's not a safe environment. I get that. Instead of waiting, maybe this is something that can be discussed amongst you guys or amongst the community. Instead of waiting another year and a half, 2 years, I understand materials and whatnot. Is there a way to conform, like it says, phase 1, conform this to the best that we can? Those rooms that need to be added on don't necessarily need the security level that the main room being used for.
It's vice versa, actually. Those need to be more secure than this in a sense.
Then would it be possible if you convert a room or two in here into an office and make that be like standard, and then whatever you're adding on be the additional, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to keep going, but I find it to be unlikely, but we're going to pursue it. We're going to check it out. There are
I'm
some
just thinking
particular
that maybe
security
that
needs.
there would be a way to get them in here within a shorter amount of time. Pull up whatever equipment you can from that building and just transfer it. And I know that's probably easier said than done, but
Thank you.
just food for thought.
Thank you. Nancy?
I like the idea of, well, I just work in Lodi. I live in Oakland.
She's here a lot too.
And I hope they didn't throw away the original punch list of the building committee, you know, the needs, everything that would make it really cool. I hope that can be an option during the process in the future and not discarded as, you know, possibilities, options, keep all this open, that's what I think.
Thank you.
Can I ask you one other
Yes,
question on that? With the food pantry needing more space right now, we all pay tax dollars towards the fire department. Why can't that hall that is only used maybe once a month, you know what I mean? It's used so sporadically. Is there a reason why that can't be utilized in the meantime to try to meet some of their needs as well, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe while in transition of the building, maybe that would utilize, they would have a space like that to use.
We talked about
already
that.
have it, we pay taxes for it.
Yeah, building committee talked about what would happen during construction and how the pantry would be continuing to operate. We talked about the firehouse as a distribution point. In terms of a permanent presence, frankly, it hasn't been considered too much because the situation is we entered into negotiation with the Presbytery. The nonprofit that operates the pantry had a relationship with the Presbytery, and our discount on this building was contingent on that. So, you know, it was the relationships that existed as opposed to sort of starting from scratch. Because, you know, I guess just spitballing, if we just sent them to the firehouse, we wouldn't
Well,
get.
I'm not saying as a permanent, I'm saying as a temporary while you're remodeling. If you choose to go with like a phase one, that way they would still be able to operate completely and totally while phase one was underway.
I'm sure the fire department would let us like use it as a distribution point.
No, I'm not saying as a permanent, as a temporary.
Good idea. Yeah.
I think what is a real waste of money is to spend almost $1 million and end up with a facility that's inadequate for the needs of the town and the food pantry and the people of the town. It's penny wise and pound foolish to try to cut pennies just for the sake of saving a few dollars. I think you ought to forget the whole idea about phases. You ought to just go ahead, work with the architects, get a plan. It's going to take almost a year before you actually start any construction. We have, in this age of COVID, we have no idea what's going to happen a year from now, just no idea at all. Maybe the prices of lumber will go down a lot by then, maybe they'll go up. And maybe you'll have to make a decision a year from now to change your plans. But I think we ought to move ahead, get this job done, and have a nice space for the people of Lodi.
Thank you, Ann. Carol Titus, full disclosure, Carol's a member of the building committee and also works with the pantry.
Well, speaking as a participant in the building process of this town hall since 2008, get off the stick and do it. That's all I gotta say.
Folks, thank you for Ben, actually. Ben with, I mean, come on, he's the last guy in the room, I'm not gonna leave him out. Not a resident of Lodi, but he is the former pastor of this facility, and ultimately, it was Ben's doing. Ben engaged me privately when the congregation was about to dissolve and offered the town this building. with those conditions.
So it's all your fault.
And shepherded the process through a very complicated bureaucracy, a church bureaucracy, and has just been really instrumental in bringing a little grace to this entire process. So, Ben, any parting thoughts for us?
Just that you all are in my prayers.
Thank you, Ben. Folks, thanks for hanging out with us so late. We'll have our next regular meeting the second Thursday in May. I'm losing the date right now, but it'll be on the town website and whatnot, and we'll certainly take some action related to the feedback that you gave us. I can't thank you enough for staying till almost 10 o'clock. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Drive safe.